Chapter 249. He was happy that she was so intimate with him, but sad that she really only saw him as an older brother. He looked at her deeply, and she looked back at him and smiled coquettishly. He was defeated by her in the end. He held her waist with one hand and said in a low voice, "Okay, I'll take you there." Bailey Han was in the intensive care unit. He was lying among a pile of equipment, and was in a deep sleep. His hair was all shaved off, and there was a long suture wound on his head. His handsome face was pale and bloodless, and his eyes were tightly shut. He looked lifeless as he lay there quietly. Mika Keto had already left the ward. Only Xia Dong and Bailey Han were left in the room. She sat at the head of his bed and held his hand. She said in a low voice, "Hubby, you have to get better soon." Bailey Han lay there quietly, without the slightest movement. Xia Dong sat beside him and accompanied him for more than half an hour. Finally, she came out of the ward and called home. The butler was so excited when he received the overseas call that he couldn't even speak clearly. Xia Dong smiled and said, "Butler, please transfer the call to Grandma." The old madam was also very excited when she received her call. Her tone was much friendlier. "Xiao Xia, I heard from Ahan that he found you. When are you coming back?" Xia Dong paused and said, "Grandma, we can't come back for the time being. There's something I need to tell you. You have to be mentally prepared." The old madam's heart tightened. Did something happen to Ahan? She had stopped Ahan from going abroad to look for Xia Dong, because she was worried that he would be agitated by Xia Dong's illness. Could it be that what she was worried about had already happened? Xia Dong replied with an and said, "Grandma, don't be so agitated. Ahan is fine now." The old madam took a deep breath. "Go ahead. I'm ready." "Grandma, we were attacked yesterday. Ahan was shot in the head. The doctor has already operated on him and removed the bullet fragments from his brain. At the same time, he also removed the foreign body in his brain. He is fine now, but he has not woken up for the time being." Xia Dong was afraid that the old lady would not be able to take it, so she did not even dare to breathe loudly and quickly said this. The old madam's expression changed. She froze for a moment before asking in a trembling voice, "You took out the small metal piece too?" "I've taken it out." Xia Dong explained the doctor's explanation to the old lady, dispelling the last trace of doubt in her heart. "When will Ahan wake up?" "We're not sure either." The old madam let out a long sigh. "It's a blessing in disguise." "Who attacked you?" Xia Dong did not tell her the truth. "We're not sure yet, but my godfather is already investigating. If the mastermind is still not found, then aren't you in great danger?" The old madam said with lingering fear. "When Ahan wakes up, you'd better hurry back." Xia Dong thought for a moment and said, "Grandma, it will take at least half a month for Ahan's body to recover. Gigai's condition has worsened, so it's not suitable for him to take a long flight. I want to stay here until Xiao Guai's surgery is done. Grandma, don't worry. Godfather will find the mastermind and protect us." The old madam frowned and sighed. "Xiao Xia, how are you feeling now?" "I'm fine. The doctor said that I can definitely hold on until the day of the cesarean section." That's good. The old madam's frown eased a little and she said, "Xiao Xia, how about this? Let Ahan stay in room to take care of you and your son." "But my illness," the old madam said earnestly. "Xiao Xia, since Ahan has already undergone brain surgery, he should soon return to normal and remember the past. You don't have to worry that your illness will stimulate him. When he recovers, you can tell him the truth." Xia Dong gritted her teeth. "If Ahan stays in room, what about the family and the company?" The old madam smiled. "Although I'm old and not very useful anymore, it's not difficult for me to handle the family matters. As for the company, Ahan has already arranged it before he went to room. His assistant, Lu Zihao, has handled everything well. If there are any important matters, I'll ask Ahan for instructions. It's okay." Xia Dong had no reason to refute the old madam's proposal. The old madam said again, "When you reach my age, you will understand that whether it's money, power, or status, nothing is more important than family. When you gave birth to Xiao Yi and the other two, Ahan was not by your side. For him, this is already a pity. Don't let him regret it again. This time, Let him be by your side when you give birth. Xiaodong said softly. I know, Grandma. Xiaoxia, don't blame Ahan. In fact, he has suffered more than anyone else. He has always felt guilty about Yinxian. He took care of her because of that guilt. You have to believe that the person he loves is you. Xiaodong's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She nodded. I know, Grandma. I know. The old madam's eyebrows relaxed. That's good. You two have to be well in room. Don't let an old woman like me worry anymore. Xiaodong choked with sobs. Grandma, don't worry. We will be well. During this time, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Ahan. You have to take good care of yourself and the children. Grandma, I will. You have to take care too. After ending the call, Xiaodong called Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao. When the two little guys heard that Bailey Han was injured, they were extremely anxious and clamored to come to room. Xiaodong comforted them for a long time, before she convinced them to stay at home with Gigai. That night, the old madam informed the whole family about Bailey Han's injury. Everyone was shocked and worried. Bai Jinxiu covered her mouth and cried. Bailey Jing jumped up excitedly. Grandma, I'll go to room tomorrow. The old madam frowned. Xiao Jing, sit down. Bailey Jing sat down reluctantly. The old madam said, Xiao Jing, what's the use of going to room? Your brother and sister-in-law are in a bit of trouble now. You'll only add to their troubles. If you really want to help, go to your brother's company and help him manage it. Bailey Jing's little face suddenly fell. Grandma, I'm not cut out for business. You don't want to see me ruin my brother's company, do you? The old madam's face was sullen. Xiao Jing, you've been back for so long and have nothing to do. Go to the company and help your father or your brother. Isn't it good to learn management? But I really don't know how to do it. Bailey Jing's face was bitter. Grandma, I studied jewelry design. You want me to manage the company? Aren't you making things difficult for me? If you don't know how to do it, just learn. The old madam said earnestly, Xiao Jing, when your brother was your age, he founded the Shenghao Group. It's very hard for him to manage such a big company alone. He's injured and unconscious now. Don't tell me you're not willing to help him? Grandma, don't say any more. I'll go, okay? Bailey Jing was not afraid of anything. She was only afraid that others would use a gentle attack on her. The old madam nodded in satisfaction. That's right. As long as the family is fine and Ahan and the others don't have to worry, it's the greatest help to them. In the end, the family discussed and decided that Bailey Xiong would apply for an urgent visa and fly to Rome to visit Bailey Han. The others would wait at home for the news. Bailey Jing, as the acting president, would go to the Shenghao Group to take charge. Just as Bailey's family was in deep trouble, Lin Shihao's life was not easy either. He tried to persuade Bai Meiwei to abort the child, but she always disagreed. Instead, she advised him that if she kept the child, it would not affect his family. She asked him not to interfere in her private affairs. Because he had something on his mind, Lin Shihao smiled less after returning home. After dinner, Lin Shihao washed the dishes and Yi Siki washed the fruits by the sink. She looked up at him, pursed her lips and said, Hubby, do you have something on your mind recently? Lin Shihao smiled. No. It's just that I'm busy. Maybe it's because I'm too busy with work. I'm a little tired. If you're tired, take a rest. Don't you still have holidays? Let's go on a trip as a family of 3, okay? Yi Siki put the washed fruits on the plate. Okay, I'll go to the hospital's human resources department tomorrow and arrange a vacation. Lin Shihao cleaned up the dishes and washed his hands. Then it's a deal. Where do you want to go? I'll check the information tomorrow. Yi Siki picked a grape and fed it to him. How about Sanya? It's cold now. Let's go to Sanya to enjoy the sun. Lin Shihao hugged her waist and said with a smile. Okay, I've wanted to go for a long time. Yi Siki poked his arm. Let's go out. Nyonyo is still in the living room. When Nyonyo heard the news, she jumped and screamed excitedly on the sofa. But soon, she was like a defeated rooster. She said listlessly, Mommy, Daddy, you guys go have fun. I'm not going. Lin Shihao carried his daughter onto his lap. What's wrong? Nyonyo said pitifully, I only have time on the weekends. It's not enough for a round trip. Lin Shihao rubbed her head. Daddy will help you apply for leave from the teacher, but you have to promise me that you'll make up for all the missed classes after you come back from your trip. Nyonyo's eyes sparkled. She raised her little hand and said excitedly, "No problem, I'll definitely make up for it. Daddy, I love you so much." Lin Shihao smiled and pinched her cheek. The next day, after Lin Shihao arrived at the hospital, he looked for his colleagues in the Human Resources Department to arrange a vacation time. Then he followed the procedure and filed an application. After leaving the Human Resources Department, he bumped into Bai Meiwei in the corridor. He nodded politely and brushed past her. She suddenly grabbed his arm and smiled. "Senior, this patient's condition is a little special. Please take a look." Lin Shihao said mildly, "Okay." He followed behind her and entered her office. She took out the patient's examination report and handed it to him. "This patient is more than 7 weeks pregnant. Her uterus is stunted. If she gives up on this baby, she may not be able to have another child in the future. Come and take a look." Songshu 566. Chapter 250. Lin Shihao said in a low voice, "The patient doesn't want the baby?" Bai Meiwei shook her head. "No, the patient really wants to keep the baby, but the father doesn't agree. He wants her to have an abortion. She's very hesitant. She wants to listen to the father, but she doesn't want to give up the chance to be a mother." Lin Shihao's fingers froze. His gaze fell on the name column in the report. The 3 words Bai Meiwei pierced his eyes. Bai Meiwei smiled sadly. "Senior, are you willing to give that patient a chance to be a mother?" Lin Shihao's entire body froze. He flipped through Bai Meiwei's report in disbelief. The facts proved that she was right. Her uterus was indeed a little special. It was very difficult for her to conceive. If she had a miscarriage after she got pregnant, she might never be able to conceive again. "I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky. Senior, please give me a chance to be a mother. I really like children." Bai Meiwei's eyes welled up with tears. She grabbed his wrist and begged in a low voice, "Senior, even if I give birth to the child, I won't disturb you and your family. I'm begging you. Let me keep the child." Lin Shihao pushed her hand away. His thin lips were tightly pursed. After a while he said in a hoarse voice, "Meiwei, medical science is very advanced now. Your illness can be cured." In other words, he still hoped that she would give up on the child. Bai Meiwei's tears rolled down. She bit her lip and said pitifully, "No matter what, I won't give up on this child." Lin Shihao wanted to say something, but someone knocked on the office door. "Dr. Bai, are you there?" Bai Meiwei quickly wiped her tears and said, "Wait a moment." Lin Shihao glanced at her and got up. "I'll leave first." He opened the door. A nurse was standing at the door. She smiled and said, "Dr. Lin, I'm looking for Dr. Bai." Lin Shihao nodded. "Go in. She's inside." As Lin Shihao walked down the corridor of the hospital, he felt as if his body had been soaked in ice water. It was so cold that he felt uncomfortable. He took out his cell phone from his pocket and searched for Yi Siki's number. His finger hesitated for a long time, before he finally didn't have the courage to press the button. Suddenly a figure rushed over. Caught off guard, he staggered and subconsciously tightened his grip on the phone. I'm sorry. My wife is about to give birth." The man wiped the sweat off his forehead and apologized as he continued to run forward. Excuse me. Lin Shihao lowered his head and looked at his cell phone. He had not expected that he would accidentally dial Yi Siki's number. What's more, the screen showed that the call was in progress. Hubby. Yi Siki called out twice, but she didn't hear any response. "Honey," Lin Shihao said in a low voice. Yi Siki quickly asked, "Hubby, what's the matter?" He rarely called her during work hours unless it was something important. Lin Shihao hesitated for a long time. In the end, he didn't tell her about Bai Meiwei's pregnancy. He opened his mouth and said, "I've already confirmed the vacation dates with the Human Resources Department." "That's good. When is it?" "Next weekend, and the Monday and Tuesday of the week after that. A total of 4 days. That's enough time." Yi Siki smiled happily. "Then I'll book the plane tickets and hotel today. Don't worry. It won't be too late to book them after the vacation report is approved." "Yeah, that's right. What if there's a last-minute change? Hubby, you're so smart. Lin Shihao felt as if there was cotton in his throat. He felt very uncomfortable. Hubby. Lin Shihao forced a smile. Yeah, it's okay. As long as you're happy. I'm hanging up now. I have a patient coming in. I'm alright. Go ahead. After hanging up the phone, Yi Siki felt that Lin Shihao's mood was a little off. What happened? Could it be Bai Meiwei? Her good mood was ruined by this speculation. Yi Siki sat in front of the computer, no longer in the mood to browse the plane tickets and hotel listings. The next day, Bailey Han still didn't wake up. Xia Dong started to get anxious. She asked the doctor, but the doctor said it was normal. His brain was injured, so all his functions needed some time to recover. She refused the help of the nurse, and insisted on personally wiping Bailey Han's body. She wet the towel with warm water, and carefully wiped his cheeks and body. By the time she was done, she was so tired that she was sweating profusely. Xia Dong stroked his pale face and said softly, Hubby, hurry up and wake up. The children and I are very worried about you. Xiaoxia. The door to the ward was suddenly pushed open, and an anxious voice sounded. How is Ahan? Xia Dong turned around abruptly and quickly stood up. Dad, why are you here? Bailey Xiong strode to the bedside with an anxious look on his face. The family is very worried about the two of you, so I came to see how Ahan is doing. The doctor said the operation was successful, but he hasn't woken up yet. Bailey Xiong frowned. It's been 2 days. Why hasn't he woken up yet? Xia Dong poured a cup of tea for him. Dad, don't worry. The doctor said it's normal. Ahan's bodily functions are recovering well. Bailey Xiong sighed. I hope he gets better soon. Ahan will get better. Dad, sit down first. Have you eaten? Bailey Xiong sat down on the sofa. I ate on the plane. How are you feeling now? Xia Dong took an apple and said as she peeled it, It's okay. His condition is stable. Dad, how many days do you plan to stay here? I'll leave when Ahan wakes up. I've already booked a hotel. Foster father arranged a residence for me near this hospital. Dad, if you don't mind, you can move here. There are servants here who can take care of our daily life. It's more convenient. Xia Dong was mainly concerned about Bailey Xiong's safety. If they lived in the same apartment, it would be easier for the bodyguards to protect them. Bailey Xiong thought for a moment and said, Well, it's more convenient to take care of you and Ahan if you live near the hospital. I'll ask my assistant to bring the luggage here. Xia Dong smiled and said, Okay. Then she handed him the peeled apple. Dad, have some fruit. On the same day, Bailey Xiong moved the luggage into Xia Dong's apartment. As she said, the apartment was very close to the hospital and was very spacious. It could be described as a mansion. There were more than 10 bodyguards inside and outside the apartment to protect their safety. Mika Kito also lived in the apartment to protect Xia Dong. When Bailey Xiong saw him, his expression was a little unnatural. Xia Dong was his daughter-in-law, but she lived under the same roof with another man. Although Xia Dong had explained that she and Mika Kito were foster siblings, Bailey Xiong still felt a little awkward. The two men stood in the living room, facing each other. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Xia Dong quickly said, Dad, Brother Shin is here to protect us. Brother Shin, my dad will also live here while he's in Rome. Mika Kito looked calm and called Bailey Xiong, Uncle. Bailey Xiong smiled stiffly. Okay. Shin, I'll have to trouble you during this time. Mika Kito glanced at Xia Dong and said lightly, It's no trouble. Xia is like a sister to me. His words explained the relationship between the two. Xia Dong looked at him gratefully. Bailey Xiong looked much better and said, I heard from Xia Dong that you and Tomac are investigating the identity of the killers. Do you have any clues? Mika Kito looked serious. The killers are probably from the Juris family, but we don't have any concrete evidence yet. Xia Dong frowned. Didn't the Juris family sign an agreement with Godfather to coexist peacefully and not interfere with each other? Mika Kito's eyes darkened and he said in a low voice, That's just on the surface. In fact, the competition between the two families hasn't decreased. If the Juris family is really behind this, we won't let them go. The Anya family was ready. Once they had concrete evidence, Tomac would declare war on the Juris family. In the afternoon, Bailey Xiong went to the castle to visit Tomac and expressed his gratitude. Tomac was very considerate and polite to him. Xiao Guai was also living in the castle for the time being. When Bailey Xiong went to visit her in the room and saw her weak appearance, his heart ached and his eyes turned red. Xiao Guai comforted him sensibly and wiped his tears with her small hands. "Grandpa, I'm fine. Don't be sad." Bailey Xiong hugged her tightly. "Gigai, when Grandpa came to Rome, your two brothers asked me to bring you gifts. Do you want to see them?" Yes. Bailey Xiong took out Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao's gifts from the bag. Xiao Yi gave Xiao Guai a porcelain doll. The doll was pink and cute, wore a floral dress and a small hat, and had a bright smile. It was very lifelike. Xiao Guai cried out in surprise. "This doll looks like me." Bailey Xiong smiled and scratched her little nose. "This is you. Your brother, he made it himself." "Wow, it's so cute. I like it." Xiao Guai hugged the doll and was so excited that she didn't let go. "There's also this. Your brother gave it to you." Bailey Xiong opened an exquisitely wrapped paper box, and the thing inside came into view. "Is this a rabbit?" Xiao Guai pointed curiously at the thing inside the paper box. Bailey Xiong laughed. "This is actually a puppy." Xiao Guai giggled. "Brother's hands-on skills are still not good. The puppy looks like a rabbit." Bailey Xiong smiled and said, "You're right. Xiao Bao's hands-on skills are too bad. However, although this puppy doesn't look good, it's very tasty. Hey, this is food." Xiao Guai took the strangely shaped puppy in her hand and pinched it. It was soft. She sniffed it and smelled it. It smelled so good. It smelled like osmanthus. Bailey Xiong said softly, "This is a 5-nut mooncake. Although the shape is a little strange, it tastes very good." Xiao Bao said that you guys were in Rome during the Mid-Autumn Festival and didn't get to eat mooncakes, so he made them himself and asked me to bring them over. Xiao Guai put the mooncake back into the box and blinked her big black eyes. "Then I want to keep it and eat it with Daddy and Mommy." "Grandpa, why didn't Daddy and Mommy come to see me today?" Everyone kept Bailey Han's injury a secret from Xiao Guai. She was like a little princess living in a castle and didn't know anything about the outside world. Bailey Xiong carried her onto his lap. "Because your daddy accompanied your mommy to the hospital for a checkup, they couldn't come to see you." She nodded. "Oh, I know. Daddy and Mommy went to the hospital to see if the little sister was obedient, right?" Bailey Xiong smiled. "Gigai wants a little sister?" Her little face was full of seriousness. "Yes, if Mommy gives birth to a little sister, then my beautiful clothes and toys can be given to the little sister." Bailey Xiong smiled and praised. "Our Gigai is so generous. I will be very good to the little sister. I will teach her to sing and dance, and I will also teach her to draw and write." Xiao Guai wanted to be an older sister. She wanted to learn from her two older brothers and protect her little brother or sister. "Gigai is so sensible. The little sister will definitely like you very much in the future." The grandfather and granddaughter chatted happily until Xiao Guai was tired and fell asleep in Bailey Xiong's arms. He put her on the bed and quietly left the room. He looked back at his little granddaughter who was lying on the bed and curled up into a small ball. There was a touch of pity between his eyebrows. The child was so young, but she had suffered so much. He hoped that his daughter-in-law would give birth to the child safely and cure Xiao Guai's illness as soon as possible. On the third day, Bailey Han still did not wake up. He was relying on nutrient infusions to maintain his body functions. Xia Dong and the others were very anxious, but after the doctor's examination, he said that everything was normal. There was nothing they could do except wait. The doctor advised the family to talk to Bailey Han more to stimulate his brain. Xia Dong had been taking care of Bailey Han for the past few days. She had told him a lot of things that they had experienced together. Even her voice was a little hoarse. Bailey Xiong said, "Xiao Xia, you rest first. I will take care of Ahan." He sat by Bailey Han's bed and recalled the past. In a gentle tone, he softly told the interesting stories of Bailey Han's childhood. As he recalled, Bailey Xiong suddenly realized that he was not a competent father. He had spent very little time with Ahan. In Ahan's childhood, his role was insignificant. He suddenly realized that his eldest son had been very lonely since childhood, which created his current cold personality. Bailey Xiong's heart was filled with guilt as he whispered, "Ahan, Daddy has let you down. I'm not a good father, and I've let your mother down. Don't sleep anymore. Wake up and shout at me. Even if you scold me, I won't be angry." At the end, his eyes were wet and his voice was choked with sobs. Xia Dong quietly left the ward and sat on the sofa in the hall. 2 bodyguards followed her from a distance. She sat outside for nearly half an hour, but Bailey Xiong still did not come out. Mikakito came over from the elevator. When she saw her, she frowned and asked, "Why are you sitting outside?" Xia Dong smiled and said, "Dad is taking care of Ahan inside. I came out to rest for a while." Brother Shen, did you find the evidence? Beauty novel, Xingwu 799. Chapter 251. Mikakito's face turned cold. That old fox Barit is too cunning. When we follow the 2 trucks, he will kill all the related people and wipe out the Yulis family. Xia Dong was furious. She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. They are vicious and well-planned. They won't give up so easily. Let's force them to show their true colors. Mikakito's eyes narrowed and he stared at her deeply. Xia, leave this to us. Don't do anything stupid." "I won't do anything stupid. I just want to lure them out. Don't they want to use me to threaten you and Godfather? Then I'll just let them tie me up." Mikakito put his hands on her shoulders and looked at her coldly. "Are you crazy? You're pregnant now. How can you take the risk? But we can't just wait passively. Brother Shen, I'm living in fear every day. I'm afraid that they'll throw another bomb at the hospital. If we don't solve this matter, we won't be able to rest easy." Xia Dong was very agitated. She couldn't calm down at the thought that Bailey Han was injured because of this. Mikakito put his hands on her shoulders and said, Xia, you're right. We have to lure them out. But you don't have to take the risk. Brother Shen, don't say anything. Leave this to me." Mikakito's eyes flashed and he said, "Don't visit Xiaoguai for the next few days." "Why?" Mikakito's thin lips curved into an ambiguous smile. Xia, trust me. I have my reasons for doing this." She looked into his eyes seriously. After a long while she nodded. Mikakito and the others were tracking down the Yulis family, and the Yulis family was also watching them. Barit met with Wolf in the middle of the night and said in a low voice, "Our operation failed. The Anya family has been tracking us closely. Do you have any good ideas?" Xia Dong has a daughter named Xiao Guai. Tomac and Mikakito love her very much. Before you attack Xia Dong's villa, Bailey Han transferred Xiao Guai from the children's hospital to Tomac's villa. Now she has been transferred to the castle. Barit frowned deeply. "You mean to say that we're going to attack Xiao Guai? There's no way we can break into that old bastard Tomac's castle." The corners of Wild Wolf's lips twitched. If it's not Xiao Guai's little hand, it'll be no different from throwing an egg at a rock. My partner had been monitoring Xia Dong for the past 2 days. He found that she would take care of Bailey Han in the hospital every morning, and go to the castle to visit Xiao Guai in the afternoon. Since we can't attack her in the castle or the hospital, why don't we attack her on the way to the castle? It was a long journey from Xia Dong's apartment to the castle, and it was an hour's journey. It was a very remote place. Last time, they had set up an ambush on this road. This time they might have an unexpected gain. Barit frowned. Tomac has been watching us very closely. If this operation fails again, we'll be exposed. Wolf said in a low voice, "In China there's an idiom. Cut off the cauldrons and sink the boats. It means that we have to win the battle without leaving any way out. Since you've made up your mind to eliminate Tomac and Mikakito, you have to be firm. Next time, you won't have such a good opportunity. Are you willing to see the Yuri's family be subservient to the Anya family?" Before Wolf left, his godfather had told him to persuade Barit to eliminate Tomac and Mikakito at all costs. In short, they wanted to use the power of the Yuri's family. Barit certainly knew that his godfather wanted to cooperate with him because of his power. However, he was also hurt by Wolf's words. Who would be willing to be subservient to others for the rest of their life? However, he couldn't make such a big decision rashly. He pondered for a moment and said, I still need some time to think about it. Wolf said, I've already studied the battle plan. I can guarantee that they'll fall into the trap without any effort. Let me know when you've thought about it. The next morning, Barit was still hesitating. He was worried that the operation would fail again, and his identity as the mastermind would be exposed. With Tomac's temper, he would definitely flatten the whole family at all costs. The housekeeper came over with the phone, and bowed respectfully. Master, Tomac wants to talk to you. Barit took the phone and waved his hand. The housekeeper left, and he laughed heartily. Tomac, good morning. Good morning, Barit. Tomac, what can I do for you? Barit stood on the balcony with the phone in his hand, and looked down at the scenery inside the old castle. Tomac said angrily, Barit, I think you've heard that someone dared to behave atrociously in my territory a few days ago. I'm very angry, so I swore to find out who that bastard is. Barit's expression froze. Hatred surged in his eyes, but his tone had a hint of agreement. Who dared to make a move in your territory? Who is the other party? Tomac said angrily. I'm not sure yet. However, if I find out who that bastard is, he'll be dead. I'll kill him with my own hands. Barit's expression was very ugly. His fingers gripped the phone so tightly that the veins on the back of his hand bulged. Barit, I'm calling you to ask for your help in finding out the other party's identity. Tomac's words sounded like he was asking for help, but in fact, his tone was very bad. There was a kind of overbearing aura. Barit put on a fake smile and said, Sure, no problem. Let me know if there's any news. Tomac didn't wait for Barit's reply and hung up the phone. His arrogant tone made Barit so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Barit threw the phone on the ground with a bang. His face was distorted by anger. Damn Tomac, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that? One day, I'll make you kneel in front of me and beg me to let you go, you damn old bastard. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. This was the difference between the first and the second. The first was always superior, and the second could only obey the first's orders. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a good ending. Barit decided to be the first. He wanted to seize this opportunity to pull down Tomac. After Tomac hung up the phone, he turned around and looked at Mikakito. He smiled and said, How was it? Do I sound like I'm being overbearing? Mikakito gave him a thumbs up and said, If I were Barit, I'd be hopping mad. Tomac shrugged and said, More or less. I can almost hear the sound of Barit grinding his teeth. Barit's temperament is irritable, and he can be easily incited. With adoptive father taking action, this matter will be handled much more smoothly. Beitang Shun's lips curved into a sinister arc. Let's beat him at his own game. Mikakito came out of the study and walked to the balcony with Suzaku following behind him. The two of them stood in front of each other, facing the wind like two statues. Mikakito suddenly turned around. Her eyes were as sharp as blades as she stared at Suzaku. She said in a deep voice, I want you to do something for me. Suzaku said calmly, Okay. Mikakito's eyes flickered and said, This is very dangerous. You might lose your life because of it. Suzaku smiled and said, My life has long been yours. I only have one request. Say it. If I die, let go of Director Lin and guarantee her safety. Okay. Suzaku smiled and said, Then I can die without regrets. Mikakito approached her and put his right hand on her shoulder. His expression was serious. It's good that you have the determination to die, but I want you to live. She stared into his eyes and said slowly, I'll try my best. At the same time, Xiaodong was taking care of Bailey Han in the hospital. She wiped his face with a towel gently and said softly, Honey, it's a new day. Didn't you say that you would accompany me and watch the baby grow up day by day? You're still sleeping in. The baby will laugh at you for being a lazy father. She unbuttoned his hospital gown and wiped his chest gently with the towel. Then, with the help of the nurse, she wiped his back. He couldn't see or hear anything, but his body could feel it. It was as if someone was wiping his body. Something soft was rubbing against his body. He wanted to move, but he couldn't. Bailey Han's mind was in a mess. He tried hard to sort it out, but he couldn't find the thread. Suddenly, he felt something warm on his face. It was soft and comfortable, but not long after, 2 drops of cold liquid rolled down his face. His fingers couldn't help but move. In the dark world, there was a faint light flickering. He couldn't help but follow it. The light became brighter and brighter, and it hurt his eyes. He closed his eyes and slowly opened them again. The chaos in his mind gradually dissipated, and scenes appeared in front of his eyes like a movie. That night, he drank alone at Charm Club. She deliberately stole the seed, and they had sex by accident. That rainy night, she slipped and fell. She reached out to pull him, but he pushed her away. She lay in the rain, looking at him with a painful and resentful gaze. His heart felt as if it had been torn open, and it was empty. In Bali, she went missing, and he went crazy looking for her. When she appeared in front of him, he was overwhelmed with ecstasy. That day, she said she wanted to leave. He drove in anger and crashed into an oncoming truck. The second before he lost consciousness, he suddenly realized that he had fallen in love with her, but he didn't have time to tell her. He thought he would never have the chance to tell her that he loved her, but she appeared in his life again. But at that time, he had already forgotten about her. Cold tears slowly slid down from the corner of his eyes. Xia Dong pressed her face against Bailey Han's. Suddenly, she felt her cheeks wet. She was sure that it wasn't her tears. She looked up and saw the tears at the corner of Bailey Han's eyes. She cried out in surprise, "Hubby!" Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 252. Hubby, wake up. Xia Dong's voice was very hoarse. It sounded far away, yet close at the same time. Bailey Han's chest felt stuffy. He struggled to open his eyelids, but the dazzling light made him unable to bear it. He quickly closed his eyes again. "Hubby, you're finally awake. Hubby." Xia Dong was crying and laughing at the same time. She hugged him tightly and refused to let go. Bailey Han opened his eyes again and saw the woman lying on his chest. She was smiling, but her face was full of tears. His heart ached so much that he almost didn't have any thoughts in his mind. His body instinctively hugged her tightly. "Hubby," sob, "you're finally awake." Xia Dong's tears were like a broken string of pearls. She couldn't stop them. He raised his hand and stroked her hair. He opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice, "Honey." Xia Dong quickly raised her head and wiped the tears from her face. She asked with concern, "Hubby, do you want some water?" His lips were already cracked. Bailey Han looked at her face reluctantly. He held her hand tightly and said with difficulty, "Let me see you first." Xia Dong smiled with tears streaming down her face. "I'm right here. I won't run away. Let me get you some water first." He stubbornly held on to her hand and refused to let go. She lowered her head and kissed him on the cheek. She said softly, "Hubby, be good guy. I'll let you see as much as you want later." A smile gradually appeared in his deep eyes and his fingers slowly loosened. Xia Dong quickly helped him up and leaned against the headboard. She poured him a glass of water and fed it to his lips. She said softly, "Slow down." Bailey Han slowly drank 2 mouthfuls. He paused for a moment until he finished drinking the entire glass of water. Only then did he raise his head. "Do you still want to drink?" Xia Dong used her finger to wipe away the water droplets on his lips. He shook his head, held her hand, and pulled her to sit beside him. He stretched out his arms and hugged her in his embrace. He had a lot of things to say to her, but his body was still very weak, and the wound on his head was also very painful. He no longer had the strength to speak. Xia Dong let him hug her and said, "Honey, Dad came from China. He's outside the ward. I'll go out and call him. He'll be back soon." Bailey Han slowly released his hand. Xia Dong kissed him on the cheek, then got up and went out to tell Bailey Xiong the good news. Bailey Xiong was so excited that he almost burst into tears. He hurriedly called the old madam and informed them. When the call ended, his eyes were already wet. He pushed open the door of the ward. When he saw his son leaning against the headboard and looking at him quietly, he couldn't help but burst into tears and quickly walked towards him. Bailey Han smirked and called out, "Daddy." Bailey Xiong patted him on the shoulder and sobbed, "It's good that you're awake. It's good that you're awake." Bailey Han smiled slightly. "Han, I'm sorry. Bailey Xiong's shoulders trembled and he couldn't continue. Bailey Han held his arm and said slowly, "Daddy, you'll always be my father." Bailey Han actually heard what his father said when he was in a coma. His father's remorse and guilt were all heard. However, at that time, he couldn't move his hands and feet at all. Only his consciousness was still clear. Bailey Xiong hugged him fiercely. Bailey Han's eyes were also shining with tears. After all, he had just woken up and his body was still very weak. He only said a few words and he felt a little tired. Bailey Xiong helped him lie down again to rest. After the doctor came to check on him, he said that the patient was in good condition and all his indicators were normal. Everyone was relieved. While Bailey Han was resting, Xia Dong came out of the hospital and got into a Maybach. The driver asked, "Madam, are we going to the castle now?" Xia Dong said, "Yes." The Maybach drove out of the hospital. Half an hour later, they were out of the city and headed for the castle in the suburbs. The car circled around the mountain road, and there were many bends. The driver slowed down and soon arrived at the place where the pileup happened. The road here had been cleaned up and no one could tell that there had been a car accident. In the dense forest about 1 kilometer away from here, 2 people in black tights stood on the high ground and watched from a distance with binoculars in their hands. Wild Wolf asked, "Nightingale, are you sure Xia Dong is in that car?" Nightingale said, "Firefox saw her get in the car. I think something is wrong." In the past, when Xia Dong went to the castle to visit her daughter, there was always a car behind her. Why isn't there a car behind her today? There is. Look, it's behind her. Nightingale said, "It's about 500 meters away from her car. It's quite far." Wild Wolf said, "Yes. How many people are there in total?" Firefox said that there is a driver and 3 bodyguards in Xia Dong's car. The car behind her, including the driver, has a total of 6 bodyguards. Wild Wolf nodded. "Tell the people on Barit's side about the situation." "Okay, got it." Nightingale turned on the headset and reported the situation in the car to the killers of the Juris family in Italian. Then she listened carefully to the feedback, nodding and replying from time to time. "Wild Wolf, the people over there said that they are ready. As soon as Xia Dong's car arrives, they will start immediately." "Very good." At this time, the Maybach was halfway up the mountain. The bends here were particularly dangerous, so the driver paid all his attention to the front. Suddenly, a smoke bomb was thrown out from the woods and rolled in front of the car. The billowing smoke immediately filled the air. The driver was worried about the pregnant woman in the car, so he didn't dare to step on the emergency brake. He slowed down the car and planned to stop slowly. However, with a creaking sound, the car tires seemed to have hit something and quickly deflated. "Madam, the car tires have burst." The bodyguard sitting in the passenger seat raised his voice. "I'll go down and check the situation. You stay in the car." The bodyguard pulled out a pistol from his waist. The smoke outside had not yet dispersed. He covered his mouth with one hand and jumped out of the car with the other hand holding the pistol. He bent over to check the tires. Suddenly, with a bang, the bodyguard fell to the ground. He lay on the road with his face covered in blood. His bloody hand trembled as he pressed a string of phone numbers. He only said the word rescue before his head tilted and he stopped moving. The bodyguard in the car shouted, "Attention everyone! Protect Madam." Xia Dong leaned over the seat and covered her belly with her hands. The car behind the Maybach saw the situation in front of them from a distance and quickly sped up to follow. However, when they were only 20 or 30 meters away from the Maybach, the same thing happened. A smoke bomb was thrown out from the woods, and the whole car was covered in smoke. More than a dozen men in black suits rushed out of the woods. They all had pistols in their hands and wore special glasses on their faces. They could see the situation clearly through the smoke. "Hurry up, catch that woman!" A man who looked like a leader shouted. A group of people rushed to the 2 cars. The bodyguard in the car could not care about anything else. He covered his mouth and nose with one hand and held a pistol with the other, shooting in the direction of the sound. "Protect Madam." Messy footsteps, screams, and gunshots all intertwined and echoed in the silent mountainside. In less than 10 minutes, all the sounds disappeared. The disgust also dissipated, and the whole forest returned to silence. The two cars were parked on the road randomly. There were two long nets made of iron thorns in front of the cars. The tires were punctured by the iron thorns and burst. There were several bodies lying in and out of the cars. Some were killers of the Urus family, and some were of the Dark Knight family. Blood flowed all over the ground, and the air was filled with the strong smell of blood. Among all the bodies, Xiaodong was not there. Her hands were tied, her mouth was taped, and her eyes were covered with a black cloth. She was escorted to a Hummer. Xiaodong sat in the back, and there were killers sitting on both sides of her. They held her arms tightly to prevent her from escaping. She struggled to free her arms and raised her head. The blonde man sitting in the passenger seat turned back and said in Italian, "Don't struggle. You can't escape." Xiaodong's eyes were burning with anger, and she stared at him fiercely. The blonde man sneered. "The people of the Dark Knight family are just like this. You see, we beat them to a pulp. When the reinforcements come, we will have disappeared." As the blonde man said, the Hummer was very fast and soon disappeared in the forest. When the people in the castle of the Dark Knight arrived, they only saw blood and bodies all over the ground. Mikakito's handsome face was distorted. He punched the car hard and roared at his subordinates. "No matter what, we must find Xiaodong." The Hummer drove for more than an hour to the barren suburbs. It drove through a forest and finally stopped outside a deserted factory. "Get out of the car." Two killers grabbed Xiaodong's arms rudely and pulled her out of the car. She seemed to have accepted her fate and quietly followed them. But the anger in her eyes revealed her emotions at the moment, which made the blonde man feel very satisfied. His name was Fitch, and he was Barit's right-hand man. Fitch waved his hand and said loudly, "You, tie her up and leave 4 people to guard her. The rest follow me." "Yes." The two killers dragged Xiaodong to a particularly thick pillar, and tied her to the pillar with a very thick rope. Then they took out their pistols and guarded her from all sides. After Fitch got into the Hummer, he contacted Wolf with his headset. "It's done. How's the surveillance on your side?" Wolf said in a low voice. "Mikakito has arrived at the scene of the accident and is very angry. I suggest that we raise the conditions tomorrow." Fitch was puzzled. "Why? Don't you Chinese like to strike while the iron is hot? Let him despair first, then give him hope. He will grasp that hope at all costs." Fitch laughed. "I understand. It's the last straw. Yes, the meaning is the same. Okay, I have to report to the boss." Fitch ended the call. Awesome novel Songshu 566. Chapter 253. In the abandoned factory, there was an empty hall with some oil barrels and lumber scattered around. Xiaodong was tied to a thick pillar, and there were 2 assassins watching over the hall. There were also 2 men with submachine guns patrolling upstairs. The heavy footsteps were especially clear in the empty factory, like a dull drum beating on one's eardrums. The sky was getting darker, and Xiaodong's body became stiff. She shook her head and moaned. A man approached her and stared at her with his sharp eyes. Xiaodong signaled with her eyes for him to tear off the tape on her mouth. The man was called Victor. He tore off the tape on her mouth. Her lips hurt, and she frowned. She moved her numb lips and said, "I want to go to the toilet." Victor said coldly, "Don't you dare play any tricks." Xiaodong panicked. "I'm not playing any tricks. I really want to go to the toilet." Victor glanced at her and waved his hand to call his companion. "Johnny, take her to the toilet." The man named Johnny was burly. He handed the submachine gun to his companion and untied the rope on Xiaodong's body. Her legs were almost numb. After the rope was untied, she moved her legs and said, "And the rope on my hands?" "The rope on my hands can't be untied yet," Johnny said coldly. He pulled out a gun from his waist and pointed at her. "Walk forward." Xiaodong pursed her lips. Under his order, she followed him to the toilet. The toilet was covered in dust, and the floor was full of dirt. Some of the cubicle doors had fallen off, and the sink was dark and dirty. Xiaodong frowned in disgust. She raised her wrist and said, "Can you untie me now?" Johnny stared at her fiercely. "Don't play any tricks." Xiaodong smiled bitterly. "What tricks can a pregnant woman like me play?" Johnny thought about it and agreed. She had been blindfolded along the way. She didn't even know where she was. Even if she escaped from the toilet, she couldn't escape from the factory because they had already set up an inescapable net in the factory. He untied her hands, and she walked into a cubicle. Seeing that he had no intention of leaving, she coughed and said, "Please leave first." Johnny closed the door of the cubicle and said coldly, "I'll stay here." He pulled out his pistol and aimed it at the cubicle door. If there was anything wrong with her, he would shoot without hesitation. Anyway, as long as he kept her alive, he didn't care about breaking her arms and legs. Xiaodong had no choice but to press the button on the water tank. Fortunately, there was still water in the water tank, and the sound of the water could cover up the sound she made, so it was not too embarrassing. After she was done, she pulled up her pants and touched her bulging abdomen. She smiled. "I'm done. I'm coming out." Xiaodong knew that Johnny must be on high alert, so she reminded him before pushing the door open, so that he wouldn't mistakenly think that she was playing tricks and accidentally hurt her. Johnny took a step back and the cubicle door opened. Xiaodong walked out slowly. She held her abdomen and walked to the sink. This place had been abandoned for too long. The water that flowed out of the pipes was yellow with rust. After about a minute, the water became clear. Xiaodong then put her hands under the tap. "Okay, let's go back." Xiaodong retracted her hands and turned around. Johnny pointed his pistol at her. "You walk in front and go back the way you came." When they returned to the factory hall, the lights inside were already turned on. The dazzling light shone down from the roof. Xiaodong closed her eyes uncomfortably. Johnny took the rope and was about to tie her up again when she pleaded, "I'm a little uncomfortable. Can you not tie me up? I promise I won't run away." "No." Johnny refused and dragged her to the side of the pillar. "How about this? Give me a chair. I'm tired and want to sit down and rest." Johnny ignored her request and tied her to the pillar. This time he didn't put tape on her mouth. Xiaodong said pitifully, "I'm hungry. Can you give me something to eat? I'm pregnant. You can't abuse me." Johnny frowned and his temples throbbed. He really wanted to slap her. He had never seen such a troublesome hostage. Victor held the submachine gun in his hand and sat on a chair at the side. He said coldly, "Johnny, let go of her hands and give her food and water." She was still useful and couldn't die. Johnny glared at Xiaodong indignantly and took bread and mineral water from the wooden table next to him. Although Xiaodong didn't want to eat the food at all, she had to force herself to eat it in order to maintain her strength. She ate the bread in small bites and tried to delay eating as long as possible, so that her hands could have more time to rest. On the other side, the whole castle was in a state of extreme tension. Tomac sent many people to search for Xiaodong's whereabouts. Mikakito also led people to search for her personally, but they didn't find any clues. They didn't tell Bailihan about Xiaodong's disappearance. Instead, they lied to him and said that Xiaodong was accompanying Xiao Guai in the castle and wouldn't go back tonight. Bailihan didn't think much about it and believed them. Nightingale had been hiding in the dense forest, monitoring the situation in the castle from a distance. She saw cars coming in and out of the castle frequently, and everyone had a dignified and anxious look on their faces. It seemed that they really valued Xiaodong. She had made the right bet. Nightingale reported the situation to Wolf, and Wolf discussed with Barit. They would contact Tomac the next morning and put forward their conditions. At night, the 4 guards were in groups of 2, taking turns to guard and rest. Xiaodong envied them for sleeping on the sofa, while she could only sit on the hard cement floor. Her hands and feet were tied, which made her very uncomfortable, especially her stomach. "Hey Johnny, please give me a blanket." Xiaodong shouted at Johnny who was patrolling. "What a troublesome woman." Johnny muttered with dissatisfaction, but still threw a blanket on her. "Thank you." Xiaodong arched her body with difficulty and covered herself with the blanket. She leaned her head against the stone pillar and closed her eyes to rest. No matter how difficult the situation was, she had to rest and maintain enough physical strength to deal with the fierce battle tomorrow. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone through the broken window into the hall, Xiaodong suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes quickly flashed with a trace of light. 10 meters in front of her, Johnny and Victor were sitting on the chairs with their heads down and taking a nap. On the other side, on the two big sofas, two tall and sturdy men were curled up on it, sleeping soundly. She bent her feet back, and the heels of her feet were close to her hands. Under the cover of the blanket, she put her right hand's fingers into her shoes and took out a 2-centimeter long blade from under the insole. The blade was very thin, but it was very sharp and could cut iron like mud. She hid a blade in her left and right feet. She hid the two blades in her sleeves in case of an emergency. After doing all this, she quietly closed her eyes. A few seconds later, she heard someone stand up from the chair, causing the chair to make a banging sound. "Hey Johnny, wake up." Victor pushed Johnny's shoulder. Johnny was shocked. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, it's daybreak. Wake up. Feej will be here in a while." "Okay, I got it. Buddy, you stay here and watch. I'm going to the bathroom." Johnny threw the submachine gun to Victor. Xia Dong pretended to be awakened by the two's conversation and slowly opened her eyes. Victor glanced at her and ignored her. He walked straight to the sofa and woke up his other two companions. When Johnny came back, Xia Dong also said that she wanted to go to the bathroom. As usual, Johnny took her there. When she washed her hands, she also washed her face and rinsed her mouth. She followed Johnny back to the hall, where the others were having breakfast. Victor handed her a hamburger and a bottle of mineral water. She said thank you and spread the blanket on the floor. She sat on the blanket and let Johnny tie her feet again. She held the hamburger in her hands and slowly ate it. After eating, she looked up calmly and looked at Victor. "What do you want by kidnapping me?" Victor said calmly. "You'll find out soon enough." After more than an hour, a large truck and a Hummer stopped outside the factory. The door of the truck opened, and a group of men in black jumped out. There were at least 30 to 40 of them. They were fully armed and did not enter the factory from the main entrance. Instead, they entered the factory from other entrances. Xia Dong could only hear a lot of messy footsteps. She lowered her eyes and listened carefully. After the footsteps disappeared, she whispered in Chinese, 34. As she spoke too softly and in Chinese, Victor and the others did not hear her. Vroom vroom. The large truck drove to the back of the factory and stopped in the garage. The door of the Hummer opened, and a blond man walked out first. He was Feej. Feej walked to the back seat with steady steps and opened the door elegantly. There was a respectful look on his handsome face. "Boss." Barit walked out of the car. His deep eyes carried a dangerous message. His tall aquiline nose made his slightly chubby face look even more sinister. They did not enter from the main entrance but from the back door. They walked upstairs slowly. Standing by the railing on the second floor, Barit looked at the people in the hall and said coldly, "Inform Tomac." "Yes." Feej bowed respectfully. Feej hung up the earpiece and said a few words in a low voice. Victor responded and took off the earpiece. He took out a cell phone and handed it to Xia Dong. He said in a deep voice, "Call Tomac." Xia Dong looked up at him. His eyes were fierce. "Hurry up and call him." She pursed her lips, took the cell phone, and pressed a string of numbers. Beep beep. After the phone rang twice, Tomac's deep and authoritative voice came through. "Who is this?" Xia Dong opened her mouth. "Godfather, it's me." Tomac asked nervously, Xia, where are you?" Xia Dong was about to speak when Victor snatched the cell phone from her hand and said in a deep voice, "Tomac, your goddaughter is in my hands now." Tomac asked calmly, "What do you want for you to let her go?" Victor laughed. 5 billion. Give me 5 billion pounds and I'll let her go." Tomac did not hesitate. "No problem. Time and place?" A calculating look flashed across Victor's eyes. He sneered. "The transaction can only be completed by you and Mikakito. At noon, the two of you will wait by the fountain in the central square. Remember, no one is allowed to bring anyone. Otherwise, you'll see Xia Dong's corpse." "Okay." After Tomac hung up the phone, he immediately ordered his subordinates to prepare the ransom and informed Mikakito to go with him. At noon, at the central square. The spacious square was crowded with tourists. Beside the fountain, two tall and straight figures stood upright, each of them carrying a black password-locked suitcase in their hands. Time passed by. The tourists taking pictures by the fountain changed several times, but they still did not see the person who was supposed to meet them. Mikakito's face was cold. She raised her wrist and looked at her watch. It's been half an hour, and they still haven't arrived. Could there be a change in the situation? Let's wait a little longer. Tomak quickly scanned the surroundings and did not see anyone suspicious. Suddenly a 7 or 8-year-old blonde girl ran in front of them. She raised her head and smiled sweetly. Come with me. Tomak and Mikakito quickly exchanged glances. They carried the password-protected suitcase and followed the little girl out of the square. They turned a corner and stood at the corner. The little girl stopped and looked up at them with a smile. Then she ran away quickly. Mikakito narrowed her eyes and was about to chase after the little girl when a black Cadillac stopped in front of them. 2 men in black suits stepped out of the car and said coldly, "Please get in the car." Tomak and Mikakito sat in the back seat. The car started immediately. The 2 men scanned them with a detector. They took out a pistol from Tomak's waist and 2 daggers from Mikakito's calf. One of the men put the weapons in the car's glove compartment. The other man took out 2 black ribbons and tied them around Tomak and Mikakito's eyes. Then he pointed a pistol at their temples. Don't play any tricks. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now. More than 2 hours later, the Cadillac arrived outside the abandoned factory. Get out of the car. The 2 hitmen pointed their pistols at Tomak and Mikakito's heads and ordered them to get out of the car. Tomak and Mikakito carried the password-protected suitcase and walked steadily into the factory hall. They were elegant and calm. They did not look intimidated at all. Xiaodong saw the 2 men walking in from outside. She shouted, "Godfather, Brother Shun." Mikakito took a step forward. She looked concerned. "Xia, are you okay?" Xiaodong shook her head. "I'm fine. You shouldn't have come." "Shut up." Victor slapped Xiaodong's face. Her head jerked to the side, and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Mikakito was furious. "What are you doing? We've already brought the ransom money. Let her go now. Come and see." Hongcha 866. Chapter 254. Let her go? If we let her go so easily, then why are we going through all this trouble? A familiar cold voice came from the second floor of the hall. Following the sound of heavy footsteps, Tomak saw a slightly plump man standing by the railing. He frowned and said angrily, "Barit, did you do all this? How dare you kidnap my daughter?" Barit said coldly, "That's right, I did it." Tomak was so angry that his whole body trembled. Barit walked down the stairs step by step. He looked at Tomak with contempt and said mockingly, "Aren't you the father of the mafia? Aren't you very capable? Why are you bringing ransom to save your daughter now?" "You bastard, Barit, I'm going to kill you with my own hands." Tomak's eyes were burning with anger. "Unfortunately, I won't give you the chance." Barit sneered and waved his hand. Fitch, who was behind him, took out a contract from his briefcase and handed it to Tomak. "What is this?" Tomak raised his head arrogantly. Barit's lips curled into a complacent smile. "This is a property transfer agreement. After you sign this agreement, all of your property, including your castle and your family members, will be mine. Don't even think about it." "I won't sign this agreement." Tomak refused immediately. "It's fine if you don't want to sign it." Barit waved his hand. Victor pulled the trigger and aimed the pistol at Xiaodong's head. Tomak's face turned ugly. He stared at Barit fiercely like a raging lion, ready to pounce and bite Barit's throat at any time. Barit was intimidated by Tomak's ferocious eyes. He was timid for a second, but he quickly calmed down. Now that he had something on Tomak, the one who should be afraid should be Tomak, not himself. "Hurry up and sign it," Barit urged coldly. Tomak took the agreement and carefully read the terms on it. This was a property transfer agreement in the name of donation. To put it bluntly, Barit was using the cover of legality as a cover to take away all of his property. Tomak's eyes were filled with rage and hatred. He read the contract very carefully and tried to stall for time. However, Barit saw through his intentions and gave Fitch a look. Fitch quickly walked in front of Xiaodong and pulled her up from the ground. He pointed the dagger at her stomach and said coldly, "I'll give you 1 minute. If you don't sign it, I'll kill her child first." Xiaodong said anxiously, No, don't hurt my child." Mika Kito's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. He clenched his fists tightly. "Let her go," Fei Qi sneered. 50 seconds left. Tomac's eyes showed signs of struggle. His hand that was holding the pen began to tremble. Barit laughed proudly. "Tomac, hurry up and sign it. Otherwise, you won't be able to see your cute daughter and grandson." 40 seconds left. Fei Qi reminded coldly. Xiaodong shook her head helplessly. Her face was filled with panic and sorrow. Her hands were tied behind her back, and her shoulders were trembling slightly. In Fei Qi and Barit's eyes, she was panicking to the extreme. However, in reality, she quietly took out a blade from her sleeve and pointed it at the rope around her wrists. 20 seconds left. Barit stared at Tomac carefully. He didn't want to miss the expression on his face. His cold face revealed a hesitant expression. "How interesting," Barit mocked. "Tomac, don't you love your adopted daughter the most? What, you can't bear to give up all of your property in exchange for her life?" 10 seconds left. Mika Kito clenched her fists and couldn't help but call out, "Adoptive father!" Tomac closed his eyes as if he was listening to something. Suddenly, his eyes opened abruptly. His gaze swept across the second floor quickly and he said coldly, "Let her go and I'll sign it." "That's the way." Fei Qi let her go. Barit raised his eyebrows proudly. A treacherous smile appeared on his slightly plump face. It made people feel as disgusted as if they had swallowed a fly. Tomac held the pen and placed the tip of the pen on the blank space where the signature should be. He didn't put the pen down for a long time. Barit was impatient. "Tomac, you old bastard. Hurry up and sign it." Tomac raised his head abruptly. His eyes were sharp like an eagle's as he stared at Barit. His thin lips were tightly pursed and he didn't say a word. Barit suddenly pulled out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Tomac's head. He said fiercely, "Hurry up, or I'll blow your head off." Tomac smiled coldly. "You're the one who's going to get your head blown off, Barit." Just as he finished speaking, a few gunshots rang out and the gun in Barit's hand was knocked away. The other assassins were shot and fell to the ground. Barit shouted loudly, "Hurry up and kill them." Xiaodong suddenly jumped up from the ground and grabbed Fei Qi's wrist with both hands. She threw him to the ground fiercely. At the same time, the blade in her hand slid across his neck and fresh blood flowed down. Fei Qi stared at Xiaodong with his eyes wide open. Until his death, he still couldn't understand how this woman could suddenly explode with such strength. A group of men in black suits suddenly rushed out from all directions and surrounded the railing on the second floor. They aimed their black muzzles at the people in the hall. Barit pointed at Tomac and the others and shouted, "Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive." No one made a move. Barit was furious. "What's wrong with you guys? Hurry up and kill them." Tomac laughed loudly. "Barit, let me tell you what's going on. They're not your men at all. They're my men from the Dark Knight family." Barit couldn't believe his eyes as he glanced at the group of people. He staggered. "No, impossible. I've clearly placed more than 30 people in this factory." Tomac looked at him coldly. 34 of them were all killed by my men. The ones you see now are all my men. Barit looked around. All the muzzles were aimed at him. Now he was the only one left in the hall. He tightened his lips and clenched his fists. How did you do it? Even if he failed, he wanted to know where he went wrong. Tomac's sight fell on Xiaodong's body. He nodded lightly. Xiaodong suddenly lifted her clothes. Her bulging belly could be seen. Barit was puzzled. Suddenly, he saw her grabbing her stomach tightly with both of her hands and tearing it apart. A soft thing that looked like human skin was torn off. She threw that thing on the ground. Her belly had returned to its original smooth and flat state. Barit was shocked. You're not Xiaodong." "Of course I'm not Xiaodong. My name is Suzaku. Don't forget my name on the road to hell." Suzaku returned to her usual voice. It was cold and emotionless. However, her face was still Xiaodong's. This was the result of her disguise. It could only be washed off with a special potion. Barit's eyes widened. No wonder you're so good at fighting. He saw how she took Fitch's life with just one move. It was only at this moment that Barit realized that he had fallen into the other party's trap. He gritted his teeth in hatred. Suzuka kicked away the fake skin that was made of resin. It felt no different from a real person's skin. A small tracking device was revealed. She said coldly, "It's this thing that exposed your hiding place." Tomac continued, "Before your people set up an ambush in this factory, my people had already set up an ambush inside. When Ashun and I walked in here, they began to replace your people one by one. So, the reason why you're dealing with me is to stall for time so that you can replace them all? Correct." Tomac smiled eerily. "Barit, you've been scheming against me. Now that you've failed miserably, what last wishes do you have? Tell me. Maybe I'll be kind and help you fulfill them." Barit's eyes flashed coldly. "Who said that I've failed miserably? I still have one last move. At worst, we'll die together." Unknowingly, an MP4-like thing appeared in his hand. His thumb pressed on the red button and he said coldly, "This is the detonator. I've already asked my people to bury a bomb in this factory. The bomb's power is enough to destroy the buildings within a kilometer radius. As long as I press the button, you'll all have to go to hell with me." So, Tomac shrugged, looking as if he did not think much of it. Barit held the detonator tightly. "Let me go and we'll forget about this." Tomac crossed his arms and said indifferently, "Impossible." Barit was furious. He said fiercely, "I'll give you 1 minute to consider. Otherwise I'll detonate the bomb." Tomac sneered. "There's no need to consider. You can detonate the bomb now." Barit held the detonator and didn't move. He was the one who asked his people to bury the bomb. He knew how powerful it was. He still had a last hope that it could threaten Tomac. "What's wrong? You don't dare to press the button? If you continue to hesitate, my people will immediately blow your head off. At that time, we'll see if you're faster than my people." Tomac sneered. Click click. In the spacious hall, the sound of bullets being loaded could be heard. The sound was uniform. Barit knew that there were dozens of guns aimed at him. He clenched his teeth and made up his mind to die together with them. He closed his eyes and pressed the button. It was quiet all around. There wasn't the explosion that he expected, nor was there the pain that he imagined. Barit opened his eyes in disbelief. He looked around stiffly. The black muzzles were still pointed at him. What was different was that everyone had a mocking smile on their faces. Tomac spread out his hands. "Barit, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Last night, my people had already defused all the bombs." Barit looked 10 years older in an instant. He staggered a few steps back, and the detonator in his hand fell to the ground. "I've said it before. I'll personally execute you." Tomac took the pistol from his subordinate and aimed at Barit's head. Awesome novel Songshu 566. Chapter 255. Barit's body stiffened. Tomac said coldly, "Don't worry, I won't let you go to hell alone. Soon, your family will be reunited with you." "Don't." Barit's eyes were filled with panic. "Let my family go, and I'll give you whatever you want." Tomac's eyes quickly flashed with a trace of shrewdness. He tilted his head, and Mika Kito took the contract from his subordinate's hand and handed it to Barit. Tomac raised his eyebrows. "Barit, old friend, we have the same idea. This is also a property transfer agreement, but the transferor is not me, but you." Barit clenched his teeth. "Okay, I'll sign it, but you have to promise that you won't hurt my family." Tomac raised his palm. "I swear to God that I won't hurt your family." Barit picked up the pen and stared at the blank space where the signature was. His fingers trembled as he wrote his name. After signing, he threw the pen and the agreement on the floor, raised his head and said, "Give me a quick death." Tomac chuckled. "Wait, there's no rush. Old friend, tell me where my godfather is." Barit was already disheartened, so he didn't hide those things anymore. He didn't come to Italy this time. There are 3 young people working for him, named Wild Wolf, Nightingale and Firefox. "Do you know where these 3 people are? I can contact them." Tomac raised his chin. "Give him a call." The subordinate handed a phone to Barit, but Barit shook his head. This is an unknown number, he won't answer. Mikakito's gaze quickly swept across the hall, and finally landed on Feichi's body. Just as he was about to walk over, Suzaku was one step ahead of him. She strode to Feichi's side, took out a phone from his pocket, and said coldly, "Catch." Barit raised his hand and took the phone that Suzaku tossed to him. He skillfully dialed a string of numbers. The phone rang 3 times, and a low voice entered his ears. "Feichi, how's the matter going?" Barit paused, raised his head and saw many pairs of cold eyes. He swallowed his saliva and said, "It's me. Things are going well, Wild Wolf. I plan to hold a celebration party at the castle tonight. The 3 of you must be there." "Of course, when is it?" 8 in the evening. "Okay, we'll be there on time." After the call ended, Tomac's eyes locked. "Barit, what are you planning this time?" Barit said, You're worried that I'll do something? If I directly ask them where they are hiding, they will definitely be suspicious. Wouldn't it be better to invite them to the castle to participate in the celebration banquet, and make your move then?" Tomac snorted coldly. "It's very good, but then you'll have to leave your life until after 8 o'clock tonight." If he killed Barit and got someone to disguise as him, he might not be able to fool Wild Wolf, so Tomac decided to keep Barit alive for the time being. Mikakito had fought with Wild Wolf before, so she knew how cunning he was. In order to not arouse his suspicion, they burned down the entire factory after they left. Even if Wild Wolf found them, he would only see ruins and burnt corpses. He wouldn't be able to tell if they were from the Yuri's family or the Dark Knight family. Mikakito put an ankle-like electronic monitoring device on Barit's ankle and warned him. This ankle-like device has an electronic monitoring function, and it's also a bomb. If you remove it by force, the bomb will explode immediately. Barit's face was ashen. "I've already fallen into your hands. Of course I won't play any more tricks." For the sake of caution, only a few people knew that Barit was captured. Even Xia Dong and Mikakito didn't tell them. They planned to tell her after they captured Wild Wolf and the other 2. Mikakito and Suzaku hid in Barit's car and entered his castle. The guards in the castle were soon replaced by the Dark Knight family. They hid in the castle, waiting for the night to come. In the evening, the castle was brightly lit. The whole castle was shrouded in bright lights, looking mysterious and charming. A banquet was being held in the hall. Everyone was wearing beautiful clothes and drinking wine. Barit was wearing a tuxedo, and he was gracefully thanking the guests. Mikakito and Suzaku had disguised themselves. Mikakito was holding Suzaku's waist. They were dancing in the hall, but they were secretly paying attention to the guests in the hall. The banquet had been going on for half an hour, but Wild Wolf and the other 2 were still nowhere to be seen. Mikakito's eyes darkened. Could it be that the 3 of them had sensed that something was wrong and were hiding? While she was pondering, the butler led the 3 guests into the hall. The man in front was about 30 years old. He was wearing a black suit, and his face was cold. Behind him was a man and a woman. The man was handsome, but there was a hint of evilness in his eyes. The woman was wearing a fiery red evening dress. Her hair was tied up high, and she looked charming. Suzaku moved closer to Mikakito's ear with a faint smile on her face. In the eyes of outsiders, they looked like a couple. She whispered, "I know that woman. She's Huahu." In the circle of killers in a city, there weren't many female killers. The top ones were Suzaku and Huahu. They had met once before. Mikakito whispered, "Keep an eye on Barit and act according to the situation." "Got it." The dance music just ended. Mikakito let go of Suzaku's waist and nodded to her with a faint smile. She also smiled and nodded. The 2 of them walked into the crowd like other dance partners. Mikakito aimed at Barit. She saw him leading Wild Wolf and the other 2 to the side hall, while Suzaku held a cocktail in her hand and walked gracefully through the crowd. It was very quiet in the side hall. Barit led Wild Wolf and the other 2 into the hall and said with a smile, "Thanks to the help of the 3 of you, I was able to get rid of Tomac." Wild Wolf nodded faintly. Nightingale smiled and said, "I'm curious. Why didn't the underworld send out any news about Tomac's death?" Huahu's beautiful eyes flashed. This was the reason why the three of them were late by half an hour. They didn't receive any news about Tomac's death and were suspicious. They deliberately watched from 1 kilometer away from the castle for a long time. They didn't dare to walk in until they confirmed that many influential figures in the underworld had come to the Yuri's family's banquet. Barit smiled and said, "Here's the thing. I plan to take advantage of this banquet to announce Tomac's death and replace him, so that the Yuri's family will be the #1 family." "I see." Nightingale touched her chin with a sly smile in her slender eyes. "There's no news from the castle of the Dark Knight. I wonder what's going on?" Barit shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe they're afraid that the underworld people will rebel if the news of his death is spread, so they deliberately hide it." Wild Wolf coughed and said, "Mr. Barit, the three of us are here to congratulate you and also to say goodbye to you. We'll go back to China tonight." Barit frowned. "Why are you in such a hurry?" Wild Wolf said indifferently, "There are still some things in the country." "Well, I won't keep you." Barit waved his hand, and a servant came over with a tray with 4 glasses of champagne on it. He made an inviting gesture. Wild Wolf and the other 2 took a glass of champagne from the tray. Barit raised his glass and said with a smile, "I want to thank you for helping me win. Here's to you." "You flatter me." The 4 glasses clinked and made a crisp sound. Barit was the first to drink the champagne in his glass. Wild Wolf looked down at his glass and took a small sip. Nightingale drank it all in 1 gulp and Firefox only took a small sip. The smile on Barit's face froze. He put down his glass and said seriously, "I'm very sorry." The 3 of them didn't understand the meaning of his words. Barit suddenly fell on the thick carpet with blood flowing out of his 7 orifices. His eyes were wide open and he died with grievances. Wild Wolf was shocked. He looked at the 3 of them. Nightingale suddenly held his throat with both hands. His face turned purple and his limbs twitched. He shouted hoarsely, "So uncomfortable. The wine is poisoned." Thump. Nightingale also fell on the ground with blood flowing out of his 7 orifices. Wild Wolf and Firefox bent down at the same time and put their fingers into their throats. Soon they spat out a puddle of filth. "Quick, let's get out of here." Wild Wolf took out a pistol from his waist and ran towards the main hall with Firefox. There were many people there. As long as they ran into the crowd, it would be difficult for the enemy to find them. They knew that their plan to deal with the Dark Knight family had been exposed. The poisoned wine they drank must be the revenge arranged by Tomac. However, when they ran to the door of the side hall, 2 figures appeared at the door. The tall and straight man stood in front of them. The woman's beautiful face was expressionless. They were like 2 messengers from hell, coldly waiting for them to walk into the trap. Mika Keto said coldly, "Put down the pistol." The 2 of them still wanted to resist. Wild Wolf aimed at Mika Keto and was about to pull the trigger. Chi! An arrow shot the back of his hand from high above. The pistol fell to the ground with a clang. Firefox gritted his teeth and threw away the pistol in his hand. Firefox looked sideways and saw a woman in black with a bow and arrow on the 2nd floor of the side hall. She walked out from behind a pillar. Mika Keto said lightly, "Tie them up." Suzaku held a pair of handcuffs in each hand and easily handcuffed the wrists of the 2 men. "Let's go." Suzaku pushed the 2 men and took them to the basement of the castle. The people who were celebrating in the main hall had no idea what was happening in the side hall. Tomac came late. He was wearing a medieval aristocratic costume with a cold face. The guests in the main hall made way for him and looked at him respectfully. Tomac walked to the center of the main hall. His most trusted assistant, Robert, held up the agreement signed by Barit and announced, "Barit has signed the property transfer agreement. From today on, the Dark Knight family will take over the Ulysses family." Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 256. There was an uproar in the hall. Everyone was shocked, but no one questioned it. Tomac now had the Anya family and the Ulyss family, and they had no ability to compete with him. The merger of the 2 families meant that Tomac's status had risen again, and he had occupied the absolute dominant position in the mafia. A figure walked in from the entrance of the hall. He was a beautiful blonde man with perfect facial features, like a god. He was tall and straight, and he walked towards the hall with steady steps. His movements were elegant, and there was a bright smile on his face. He walked to Tomac's side and said with a smile, "Uncle, congratulations." The serious expression on Tomac's face was swept away and replaced by a warm smile. He opened his arms and said, "Holly, my child, you're back." Holly was the only son of Tomac's elder brother who had passed away. He was also Tomac's only relative by blood. Tomac treated him like his own son. Holly hugged Tomac and said with a smile, "Yes, uncle. I'm back." "Very good, very good." Tomac nodded repeatedly, not minding showing his gentle side in front of everyone. The banquet continued. Tomac put his arm around his nephew's shoulder, and the uncle and nephew chatted happily. Holly said, "Uncle, I heard that Xia Xia and Ashen came to Rome. Where are they now?" Tomac smiled and said, "Ashen is in this castle. He's dealing with some things and will be back soon. Xia Xia is in the hospital." Holly was shocked. "Xia Xia is in the hospital? Is she sick?" "It's a long story. In short, Xia Xia is sick. She took Xiao Guai to Rome to give birth, but it's not her who's in the hospital. It's her husband, Bailey Han." Holly seemed to understand and nodded. "So, she's taking care of Bailey Han in the hospital now?" "Yes and no." Tomac smiled mysteriously. He briefly explained what had happened in the past 2 days and said, "Suzaka disguised herself as Xia Xia to lure Xia Xia. We were worried that she would be exposed, so we let Xia Xia hide in the hospital, and didn't allow her to go to Bailey Han's ward." Holly suddenly understood and said with a smile, "I see. Uncle, that's a good plan." Tomac smiled. "This is Ashen's idea." Holly smiled and agreed. "Ashen is indeed very smart." Tomac raised his eyebrow. "Now it's time to inform Xia Xia. She can openly accompany Bailey Han's company." After that, he asked Robert to call Xia Dong. Xia Dong had been in the ward for a day and a half, and she had been tortured for a day and a half. Bailey Han was in the ward downstairs. They were very close, but she couldn't visit him. She could imagine how torturous it was. After learning that Bailey Han was dead and Wolf and the other two were arrested, Xia Dong finally felt relieved. The first thing she did after the call was to run downstairs to visit Bailey Han. Bailey Han was leaning against the headboard, looking much better. Bailey Xiong was sitting beside him. The father and son were whispering something with smiles on their faces. The atmosphere between the two of them was very harmonious. Xia Dong didn't want to disturb them, so she quietly closed the door and left. She sat on the sofa in the corridor and waited for more than 10 minutes. Bailey Xiong came out of the ward. Seeing her, Bailey Xiong asked, "Xiao Xia, you're back. Why didn't you come in?" Xia Dong stood up and smiled. "I saw Dad and Ahan chatting, so I didn't go in to disturb them." "Is Ahan asleep?" Bailey Xiong smiled. "Not yet. Go in quickly. He's been waiting for you for a long time." Xia Dong smiled embarrassedly. Pushing open the door, she suddenly entered a pair of smiling and doting eyes. They had only been apart for 2 days, but it felt like 2 years. She smiled and walked step by step to his bed. His eyes shone brightly as the corners of his lips curled up. "Come closer." Xia Dong looked down and walked to his side. He reached out and took her right hand. She sat on the edge of his bed. Bailey Han shifted his body and pulled her into his arms. He hugged her tightly and said gently, "Why are you only back now?" Xia Dong leaned against this familiar chest. Her heart was full. She hugged his waist with both hands and said softly, "Xiao Guai wants me to spend more time with her." They had kept Barit's matter from Bailey Han. They had pretended that Xia Dong had been accompanying Xiao Guai in the castle for the past 2 days, because they didn't want him to worry. Bailey Han lowered his head and kissed her cheek. "Wifey, I have a lot to say to you." She rubbed against his chest like a cat. "Okay, tell me. I'm listening." He tightened his arms and hugged her tightly. His voice was a little low. "Wifey, I've actually loved you for a long time. I've also waited for you for a long time." Xia Dong raised her chin and looked at him in confusion. A smile appeared in his eyes. It spread out bit by bit, and was as bright as a crystal. He looked into her eyes seriously and said slowly, I fell in love with you 5 years ago. You made me wait for 5 years before you were willing to return to my world. Tell me, how should I punish you? Xiaodong's eyes were filled with surprise. You remember? Silly. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. The soft touch made him want more. His tongue gently pried open her lips. His nimble tongue slid into her sandalwood mouth and entwined with her tongue. His left hand held the back of her head firmly, and his right hand held her waist tightly. Her bulging belly was right against his abdomen. Her soft skin rubbed against his, and he started to feel restless. Xiaodong felt her entire body heating up. Her pregnant body had become unusually sensitive. She could clearly feel his hot and hard member pressing against her belly. She was so embarrassed that her cheeks flushed red. She closed her eyes tightly, not daring to look at him. Bailey Han made a low sound of from his throat. His kiss became more passionate until his abdomen felt uncomfortable, and he was about to lose control. Only then did he let go of her. Their lips were still touching. He gently rubbed against her lips and whispered hoarsely, "Wifey, to be able to meet you in this life is the blessing of 3 lifetimes." Xiaodong's limbs were still a little weak. She threw herself into his arms. Her blushing cheeks leaned against his chest as she listened to his violent heartbeat. Her lips curled up as she whispered, "If you don't leave me, I'll be by your side in life and death." Bailey Han hugged her tightly. His chin was on her hair as he greedily breathed in her fragrance and felt her warmth and her softness. The moment he regained his memories, his love for her seemed to have risen to a new level, a level where their souls were intertwined. He loved her to the bone, and so did she. They had gone through many twists and turns to be together. They would cherish each other even more in the future. It was already past 9 at night. Xiaodong couldn't bear to go home. Even though the apartment was very close to the hospital, Bailey Han also couldn't bear to let her go, even though they would meet again the next morning. You, the two of them spoke at the same time and stopped at the same time. You first, the two of them spoke at the same time. They looked into each other's eyes and smiled foolishly, like a young man and woman who had just fallen in love. Bailey Han ruffled her hair. You should go first. Xiaodong grabbed his clothes. It's late. I should go back. He pursed his lips and smiled. Stay with me. This bed is very big. Xiaodong seemed to have thought of something and her face turned red. What if someone finds out? The nurse would check on them every night. What are you afraid of? We're husband and wife. Bailey Han looked calm. He hugged her tightly and said shamelessly, I want you to stay with me. Xiaodong raised his head and looked at him with a smile. All right, I'll stay. He gave her a loud kiss on the cheek. She pushed his arm. Do you want me to help you take a shower? I can do it myself. After Bailey Han said that, his charming eyes suddenly narrowed and his lips curled into a devilish smile. Okay, you can help me take a shower. Xiaodong found it funny. Didn't you say you could do it yourself? He bit her ear and said in a low voice, We'll take a bath together. She pinched his arm. You wish. Your body hasn't recovered yet. We can't sleep together for at least a month. Moreover, I'm in the late stages of pregnancy. It's not good for the baby. You'll have to abstain for a few months. Bailey Han sighed. After this child is born, I don't want any more children. Xiaodong's eyes darkened. After giving birth to the baby, she would have to undergo surgery to remove her uterus. It would be impossible for her to have children in the future even if she wanted to. She leaned in his arms silently. Bailey Han sensed that something was wrong and lifted her chin. Honey, are you angry? I'm just kidding. We'll have as many children as you want, okay? Xiaodong's heart ached. He was becoming more and more concerned about her emotions. He would notice even if something was wrong. She caressed his handsome face gently and smiled. Honey, I'm not angry. 4 children is enough. We don't want any more. He took her hand in his and kissed her fingers. Whatever you say. She smiled. Honey, let me help you take a shower. His eyes were filled with tenderness. Okay. Bailey Han could already get up and down the bed by himself. Although he was wearing a hospital gown, he didn't show any signs of weakness. He straightened his back and walked into the bathroom with steady steps. He sat in the bathtub and the warm water flowed down slowly. Xia Dong moved a chair to sit beside the bathtub and wiped his back with a wet towel. From this angle, she could clearly see his head. His hair had been shaved and there was a long scar on the top of his head. Some parts of his head had green roots. She couldn't help but reach out to touch his head. The green roots pricked her palm and her fingers slid to the edge of the scar, but she didn't dare to touch it. Welfare Xinwu 799. Chapter 257. Bailey Han chuckled. Do I look ugly right now? Not ugly, very handsome. It's the most handsome hairstyle I've ever seen. Xia Dong's eyes were filled with tears. Bailey Han smiled happily. My wife really knows how to talk. Xia Dong blinked and her tears fell into the bathtub. His back was facing her, so he didn't see it. She retracted her fingers and asked with heartache, Hubby, does it still hurt? It doesn't hurt anymore. Bailey Han suddenly turned his head and found that her face was covered in tears. His heart immediately ached, and he reached out his arms to hug her. Silly girl, it doesn't hurt at all. Don't cry. Xia Dong bit her lips and her tears fell. She would never forget the fear in her heart when he was shot. How could it not hurt with such a long scar? Don't cry, good girl. Bailey Han held her face and lowered his head to kiss her, gently kissing away the tears on her face. This kiss that was full of tenderness and sweetness slowly changed. His lips slid to her neck, and then slowly down. His palms entered from the hem of her clothes and caressed her body. Her skin was soft and smooth, just like the finest silk, making him unable to put it down. Xia Dong leaned her head on his chest. Her heart was soft, like cotton candy. He kissed her forehead and carried her out of the bathtub. He wanted to send her back to the ward, but she nervously grabbed his arm. Hubby, your injury. He looked at her with a smile. It's all right now. I'll carry you to the bed. Bailey Han carried her back to the bed, and the two fell asleep in each other's arms. In the basement of Castle Eunice, the torture had just begun. This basement was originally a torture room. There were all kinds of torture instruments inside, as well as the disgusting smell of blood mixed with rot. Wild Wolf and Firefox were tied to the electric chair by iron shackles. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, waiting for the god of death to come. Beitangshan slowly walked down the stone steps. His tall and straight body looked even taller under the dim light. His handsome face had a cold expression, and his eyes were like sharp swords as he stared at Wild Wolf and Fox. He said coldly, If you cooperate, I will consider leaving your corpses intact. Wild Wolf snorted. I'm going to die anyway. Why should I be afraid? Mika Keto said eerily. Even if you die, you still have your family. Do you want your family to accompany you to hell? Wolf laughed as if he had heard something funny. My family has already been moved to a safe place by my godfather. Mika Keto, you can't threaten me. Really? Since you're not afraid of death, then give it a try. Let's see if I have a way to make your life worse than death. Mika Keto waved his hand casually. Jiang Dao, who was standing behind him, suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Wolf. Wolf stared at Jiang Dao. What are you going to do? Do you know the feeling of an electric current passing through your body? Your body will slowly go numb, your limbs will be frozen, and your heart will gradually stop beating. In the end, your entire body will become a pitch-black skeleton. Jiang Dao's calm voice lingered in the empty basement. It was eerie and eerie, making one's hair stand on end. Jiang Dao pressed the switch of the electric chair expressionlessly. This was a modified electric chair, and the current could be adjusted at will. He first adjusted the current to a medium level. It would be very painful for the human body, but it would not kill them. The two electric chairs were connected at the same time, and a sizzling sound could be heard in the room. Wolf and Firefox restrained themselves at first, clenching their teeth and not moaning. But in the end, the electric current kept increasing, and they couldn't bear it anymore. They howled in pain. The two of them struggled hard, trying to escape from the electric chair, but their hands and feet were firmly tied. They couldn't escape at all. Their painful howls were very shrill. Their bodies were even emitting white smoke, and their clothes were burning. The smell of burnt meat filled the air, and their bodies were being roasted at a speed visible to the naked eye. They were like mutton skewers that were being roasted on a street stove. Ah, it hurts. Wolf and Firefox had begun to roll their eyes, and their bodies were trembling violently as if they were about to suffocate. Jiang Dao suddenly adjusted the electric current to the minimum and said coldly, "How many layers does Godfather have? How can we find him?" The trembling of their bodies lessened, and they could barely breathe. Wolf raised his head, sweating, and stared at Jiang Dao with eyes full of hatred. "Kill me." Jiang Dao sneered. "It's boring to kill you. I haven't had enough fun yet." He suddenly turned his head and looked at Firefox, who was gasping for breath. "What about you? You don't want to talk?" Firefox lowered her head in embarrassment, and her clothes were soaked with sweat. She gritted her teeth and said, "Kill me or cut me up as you wish." Jiang Dao clapped his hands. "So you two are tough guys. Don't worry, I won't let you down." He waved his hand, and his men pushed a small cart from a distance to Jiang Dao. The cart was covered with a white cloth. Jiang Dao suddenly tore off the white cloth and threw it on the ground. The things placed on the cart suddenly came into everyone's sight. Chisels, hammers, daggers, scissors, scalpels, iron hooks, and other tools were placed side by side on the stainless steel plate. The surface of these tools was mottled with a layer of dark red, and it was impossible to tell whether it was rust or blood. Seeing these things, it was not difficult to imagine what kind of torture was waiting for them. Wolf and Firefox, who were already badly mutilated, could not help but shudder. However, since they were going to die anyway, they just had to grit their teeth and hold on. And then they would get through it. The same thought came to their minds. Jiang Dao slowly put on a pair of rubber gloves and said to himself, "I don't like to stain my hands with blood." After putting on the gloves, he put on a rubber apron, picked up a chisel and a hammer from the cart, and slowly walked to Wolf. At this time, he was like a perverted butcher in a horror movie, approaching his prey step by step. Jiang Dao coldly stared at Wolf. "You have one more chance." Wolf clenched his fists tightly and used silence to express his attitude. Jiang Dao pursed his lips and sneered. "Wild Wolf, do you want to know what your brain tastes like after it's fried?" At the same time, a man in a chef's uniform pushed a dining cart into the basement. There was an induction cooker on the dining cart, and there was a frying pan on the stove. The chef acted as if he didn't see anything. He calmly turned on the induction cooker and poured cooking oil into the frying pan. Wolf's body stiffened, and Firefox's eyes were filled with fear. "You'll know soon enough." Jiang Dao's lips curved into a sinister smile. He picked up the chisel with his left hand and put it on Wolf's head. The sharp part of the chisel was close to Wolf's scalp. He held the hammer in his right hand and hit the chisel hard. Wolf howled in pain. Blood flowed down from his forehead and dripped on the floor. He was in so much pain that he struggled violently, wishing he could bite off his tongue. However, before he could carry out his plan, a bodyguard rushed over and stuffed a pair of braces into his mouth, making him beg for death. Firefox trembled all over. Seeing Wolf's situation, she thought of her own fate and almost fainted. Bang! Jiang Dao hit the chisel again, and the chisel drilled into Wolf's skull. He said coldly, "Now I've opened your skull. Next, I'll cut off your skin with a scalpel, cut off a part of your brain, and fry it in the pan." The wild wolf let out a shrill scream as his body struggled violently. The scalpel cut open his scalp bit by bit, just like a watermelon that had its stem twisted open. The scalp on the top of his head was also twisted open by the scalpel, revealing a white, tofu-like thing. Mika Kito was sitting in a chair 20 or 30 meters away from them like a high and mighty emperor. She looked at this cruel and bloody scene calmly without blinking her eyes. Wolf rolled his eyes. Every time he was about to faint, someone would inject him with medicine to keep him awake and suffer inhumane torture. Welfare Xingwu 799. Chapter 258. The crotch of Wolf's pants was soaked, and a warm stream flowed down his legs and gathered under the electric chair. He couldn't bear the pain and incontinence. Seeing her former companion in such a sorry state and in such pain, Wohu's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She clenched her teeth and stared at Jiang Dao. Jiang Dao didn't care at all. He threw the scalpel into the iron plate, picked up a small dagger, and said lightly, "Next, I'm going to cut off a third of your brain. It's said that this won't affect your ability to speak and remember. The oil in the frying pan was boiling as if it was singing a song, waiting for the third of Wolf's brain to roll into the boiling oil. Wolf's eyes were bloodshot like a trapped beast. He let out a deep roar of pain from his throat. The dagger slowly fell on the pile of white tofu-like things. But just when he was about to do it, Huahu suddenly screamed, "Stop! Stop! I'll tell you everything. Please let him go." She had a mental breakdown, and she couldn't bear the huge psychological pressure anymore. She burst into tears, and her lips trembled as she shouted, "Let him go! Let him go!" Jiang Dao elegantly put away the dagger, and turned to look at Huahu with a cruel sneer on his face. "Speak. If I'm not satisfied with what you say, I'll cut off a third of your brain and throw it in the frying pan." Horfox's shoulders trembled violently. As an assassin, she had seen many cruel scenes and many tragic scenes of torture. However, this was the first time she had seen such a cruel and inhumane interrogation. She tried to calm herself down and slowly said, "I'll tell you everything I know." "Very well." Jiang Dao put the dagger back into the iron plate, tore off his bloody gloves, and threw them on the floor. "How many lairs does Godfather have in China?" Huahu's teeth were still trembling. "I only know 2. One is the villa in Mountainside, and the other is in Repulse Bay." Mika Kito's eyes turned cold. The villa in Repulse Bay was the place where they broke in and massacred the Godfather. Under the dim light, his face was gloomy and his voice was cold as if it came from hell. "What's the specific address of the villa in Mountainside City? Area A number 12. Mika Kito leaned back and waved his hand. Suzaku, who had been standing behind him, leaned forward and whispered in her ear, "Send Godfather's address to a city and get someone to keep an eye on him." "Understood." Suzaku quietly exited the basement and relayed Mika Kito's orders to the people left behind in the country. Then she quietly returned behind him. Jiang Dao asked again, "How do you usually contact your Godfather?" "Godfather has a phone number. When you call it, you'll be reminded that it's an empty number. Then Godfather will call us. So only Godfather can contact you. You can't contact him. If Godfather didn't call back, they couldn't contact him at all." Huahu said, "You can say that." She paused and glanced sideways at Wolf, who seemed to be in a coma and had a bloody head. Maybe Wolf knows more. He's the most trusted person of Godfather. Jiang Dao said coldly, "Bring me water." A bodyguard brought a basin of cold water. Jiang Dao took the basin, aimed at Wolf's body, and suddenly splashed it. The cold water washed down from his head, and blood mixed with the water flowed all over the ground. Wolf coughed and woke up. The severe pain made his face twist. Huahu looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Wolf, give up. Don't be stubborn. Tell them how to contact your Godfather." Wild Wolf was already on the verge of death. Jiang Dao's torture game had pushed him to the brink of death. His spirit was on the verge of collapse. Blood was dripping down from his forehead. He opened his mouth and gasped heavily, like a dried fish. "Wolf, give up." Huahu's tears fell like rain. The light in Wolf's eyes gradually faded. His whole body was controlled by the pain, and he had no other feelings. He was like a puppet, gradually losing his mind. Jiang Dao looked at him coldly. "How do you usually contact Godfather?" Wolf answered mechanically, "Call his private phone." "What's his private phone number?" Wolf casually reported a string of numbers, and the bodyguard quickly wrote it down. "Where else does Godfather live except for the villas in Mountainside City and Repulse Bay?" Wolf seemed to be hypnotized and answered blankly. "There's a villa in the Bailey's Tsang Mountain in the suburbs of the city. Su Yinqian was tied up there last time." "What else?" "That's all I know." Mika Kito raised her hand, and Jiang Dao temporarily stopped asking questions. Mika Kito asked in a low voice, "Godfather kidnapped Su Yinqian, right?" Wolf answered blankly, "Yes. Godfather originally negotiated with Su Yinqian to deal with Xia Dong and Mika Kito together. They pretended to kidnap and rape her, but Godfather hid something. In fact, he killed 3 birds with 1 stone. He also used Su Yinqian." Mika Kito's eyes darkened. "Is there any evidence?" "Yes. Godfather originally planned to kick Su Yinqian out of the picture. and expose her in front of everyone. But things changed. Xia Dong left China, so Godfather didn't expose the evidence for the time being. Where's the evidence? It's on my computer. Godfather asked me to take care of it. I'll release it to the public at the right time. Where's your computer now? In a hotel. Which hotel? What's your room number? Wild Wolf was like a puppet controlled by someone. He asked and answered, and told everything he knew. Unfortunately, the Godfather was very cautious. Even if it was someone he trusted, he still did not reveal a lot of important information to Wild Wolf. Beitangshan sent someone to Wild Wolf's hotel to retrieve his laptop. He opened the folder and found the evidence that Wild Wolf had mentioned. It was a video, and it looked like it was secretly taken. In the video, Su Yinxian was sitting with a man in a black trench coat. Su Yinxian was facing the camera, and the man's back was facing the camera. She couldn't see his face clearly, but Mika Keto guessed that the man was Godfather. They were talking about how to make the kidnapping look real, what Su Yinxian should say to win the audience's sympathy and trust, and what conditions should she put forward to drive a wedge between Bailey Han and Xia Dong. With this video, they could prove that Su Yinxian and Godfather were in cahoots. They wanted to destroy the relationship between Bailey Han and Xia Dong. Unfortunately, the video was shot very skillfully and did not reveal the Godfather's appearance at all. His voice was also specially processed and could not be distinguished. Therefore, even if it was released to the public, everyone could only recognize Su Yinxian and reflexively put all their attention on her. Beitangshan asked Jiang Dao to copy the video into the USB flash drive. Then he opened other hidden files on the computer and found other evidence of his Godfather and Wild Wolf's crimes. His Godfather had sent Wild Wolf to kidnap and assassinate people several times, and Wild Wolf had written down every plan clearly and saved the photos of the crime scenes. Jiang Dao also copied all these things to the USB flash drive. One day, these things would be used to bring down Godfather. It was already midnight. Huahu raised his head and looked at Beitangshan. Since you've already gotten what you want, give us a quick death. Mika Keto raised her hand to signal Jiang Dao. Jiang Dao took out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Wolf's forehead. Wolf stared at the muzzle blankly and didn't react. Bang! With a gunshot, a bullet went through the middle of the wolf's forehead. Blood came out and sprayed everywhere. Wolf's body slumped on the electric chair. She glanced at the wolf before slowly closing her eyes. She knew that the god of death was about to descend upon her. Bang! Another gunshot was heard. Firefox also slumped on the electric chair. The entire basement was filled with the strong stench of blood. Then there was a dead silence. Let's go. Mika Keto suddenly stood up. He didn't even frown in the face of the bloody basement. He walked out expressionlessly. Suzaku followed behind him. They walked out of the basement and walked up the stairs. When they reached the top of the castle, Suzaku exhaled slowly. Frankly speaking, her stomach was still feeling a little uncomfortable. Mika Keto walked in front, and she followed behind unhurriedly. When they reached the balcony, he suddenly turned around and stared at her expressionlessly. His thin lips moved and he said coldly, "How do you feel?" Suzaku frowned. "It's disgusting." There was a scrutinizing look in his eyes. "They used to be your companions." Suzaku said impassively, "You don't have to test me. We can't be considered companions. We've only met once. I can only express my sympathy for what they've been through. That's all. Don't you think it's cruel?" Mika Keto's sharp gaze was fixated on her eyes, as though he wanted to see through her organs. "Cruel?" Suzaku sneered. "If you're kind to your enemy, you're being cruel to yourself. Although I don't agree with your methods, I acknowledge your ruthlessness. You don't have to worry that I'll be unfaithful to you because of this." Mika Keto pursed his lips. He realized that this woman was more cold-blooded than he had imagined. She was able to analyze the pros and cons of the matter clearly. Suzaku met his gaze quietly and said calmly, "How long are we going to stand here for? If there's nothing else, I'd like to go back and rest." Mika Keto suddenly remembered that she had pretended to be kidnapped yesterday. She must not have had a good rest last night. She had been in a state of high tension during the day, and hadn't had a chance to rest until now. Even a man would feel a little overwhelmed, let alone a woman. For the first time he treated her as a woman. Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 259. Mikakito said calmly, "It's all right. You can go back." "Okay." Suzaku replied casually and turned to leave. She was dressed in a tight black suit and looked dashing and unrestrained. After the 3 wild wolves were killed, Mikakito planned to follow up the victory and return to China to deal with his godfather's matter. He went to the castle to say goodbye to Tomak. A handsome blonde man with blue eyes was sitting in the living room with his godfather, talking and laughing. "Shen, you're here. Come here. We're talking about you." Tomak smiled. The blonde man stood up with a bright and sincere smile. "Shen, long time no see." "Holly, long time no see." Beitang Shun's lips curled up as he walked towards them with steady steps. Holly opened his arms and the two hugged. Mikakito raised his eyebrows. "What are you talking about?" Tomak laughed. "Holly said you're smart. You played a big role in dealing with Barit. That's because Godfather supported me. That's why the plan could be carried out." Mikakito smiled. "Holly, how are you doing in England?" Holly shrugged. "Not bad. I've taken care of those old foxes." Mikakito patted Holly's shoulder. "Those old foxes are all cunning. You're amazing to be able to make them submit to you." There were a few mafia families in England who thought they were far away from the emperor, and were disrespectful to Tomak. They even had a lot of disputes with his forces in England, so Tomak sent Holly to England to deal with this matter. Holly grinned and changed the topic. "By the way, Shen, I plan to visit Xia Xia and her husband in the hospital. Do you want to come with me?" Mikakito's eyes darkened as she said, "I came here to say goodbye to Godfather. I'll go to the hospital to say goodbye to Xia Xia later." Tomak's smile faded. "You're going back so soon?" Mikakito nodded. "I plan to follow up my victory and uproot the Godfather's forces." "That's good too. Be careful. If you need any help, just let me know." "I will, Godfather. Thank you for taking care of Xia Xia and Xiao Guai. Why are you being so polite?" "Don't worry, they're in my hands. I won't let them lose a single hair." Mikakito smiled. "Holly, let's go to the hospital together after I say goodbye to Xiao Guai." Xiao Guai was still living in the castle for the time being. She would be transferred back to the hospital tomorrow. Mikakito and Holly walked into her room. The little girl was wearing a white mask, a pink hat and a pink princess dress. She was sitting on the thick carpet and playing with building blocks with the nanny. "Uncle Shun, Uncle Holly." When she saw the two of them, Xiao Guai threw away the building blocks in her hands, got up from the ground, and ran over to them. Mikakito bent down and picked her up. "Gigai, did you listen to me and take your medicine and injections?" "Yes, the nurse pricked my butt with the needle. It hurt so much. I didn't even cry." Xiao Guai wrapped her arms around Mikakito's neck, her big bright eyes sparkling. "Gigai is so obedient." Mikakito lowered her head and rubbed her soft little face. "Uncle Shen, you haven't come to see me for 2 days." Xiao Guai blinked her eyes, feeling wronged. "Uncle Shen is busy." Mikakito hugged her tightly. She didn't know how to tell her that she was about to leave. "I know. I don't blame you." Xiao Guai giggled, her eyes filled with joy. "Uncle Shun, I lied to you, didn't I? Naughty girl." Mikakito gently scratched her little nose, her eyes full of smiles. Holly placed his left hand over his heart with a sad expression. "Gigai, I'm so sad. You only cared about playing with your Uncle Shun and forgot about my existence." "No, I just wanted Uncle Holly to hug me." Xiao Guai quickly stretched out her arms in his direction, her big eyes sparkling. "Uncle Holly, hug me. Little sweetheart, you're really lovable." Holly opened his arms and snatched Xiao Guai from Mikakito's arms. He smiled and said, "Gigai, Uncle Holly will stay in Rome for a long time this time. I'll accompany you every day, okay?" "Okay." Xiao Guai clapped her soft little hands and giggled. "It'll be even better if Uncle Shin stays here for a long time." Mikakito touched her cheek and said gently, "Gigai, Uncle Shen is going back to China today. You have to be obedient and not make me worry, okay? Xiao Guai's little face fell, and her eyes were full of unwillingness. Uncle Shen, are you leaving so soon? Uncle Shen will return to China to beat up the bad guys so that they won't dare to bully your mommy again. Xiao Guai nodded heavily, her eyes serious. Okay, Uncle Shen, I support you. You must beat the bad guys to a pulp. The little girl's expression was really cute. Holly couldn't help but pinch her little face and say with a smile, "It'll be great if I have such a cute daughter in the future." Mika Keto couldn't help but laugh. Then you have to find a wife quickly. Holly raised his eyebrows. Who said that I have to have children with my wife? Mika Keto shook her head and patted him on the shoulder. She didn't comment on his debauched private life. Xiao Guai puffed up her cheeks and suddenly said, "Illegitimate children are very pitiful." Holly and Mika Keto were stunned at the same time and stared at her. Her eyes lit up and she said softly, "My brother and I have been called illegitimate children before." Beitang Shen felt a sour and astringent feeling in his heart. Holly's eyes moved as if he was thinking about something. "But we're not anymore. We have Daddy." Xiao Guai's eyes curved, overflowing with happiness. Holly couldn't help but hug her tighter. The two men and the little girl chatted and laughed for more than half an hour. It wasn't until Xiao Guai fell asleep in Holly's arms that they put her back on the bed. Mika Keto bent down and kissed her forehead, and the two of them quietly left the room. When Mika Keto and Holly arrived at the hospital, Xia Dong, Bailey Han, and Bailey Xiong were sitting on the sofa and chatting casually. Bailey Han was in good spirits, and his body was recovering very quickly. "Holly, you're back." Xia Dong was pleasantly surprised to see Holly. "Yeah, I didn't expect the baby in your belly to be so big when I came back. I wanted to hug you, but I couldn't sit down." Holly shrugged helplessly. He wanted to hug her, but her belly pushed him away. Xia Dong laughed. "You're going to have another nephew. Don't forget to give him a red packet." "I definitely won't forget." Xia Dong and Holly chatted at the side. Bailey Han reached out his hand and looked at Mika Keto sincerely. "Thank you for taking care of Xia Xia all this time." Mika Keto paused and reached out to shake his hand. "You didn't let me down either." He used his body to take a bullet for Xia Dong, proving that his love for Xia Dong was no less than Mika Keto's. But Mika Keto pursed his lips and said coldly, "If you do something wrong to Xia Xia one day, I will take her away." Bailey Han looked into his eyes calmly. "I won't give you a chance." Mika Keto pursed his lips. "I'll wait and see." Then Mika Keto explained why he came. Although Xia Dong couldn't bear to part with him, she didn't ask him to stay. She knew that he came back to China to deal with her godfather. Coincidentally, Bailey Han was also coming back to China, so the two of them could travel together. At noon, everyone had lunch at an elegant restaurant near the hospital. Then Xia Dong and Bailey Han watched them get into the car and drive to the airport. "It's just the two of us again." Xia Dong looked at the car in the distance and suddenly felt empty. Bailey Han put his arm around Xia Dong's waist. "Honey, don't be sad. We will be reunited soon." Xia Dong leaned against his chest and said, "MHM. City A, 8 o'clock p.m. Yi Siki was packing her luggage in the room. In 2 days, the whole family would be going to Sanya for a vacation. She took out her summer clothes and planned to pack them in advance. Suddenly her cell phone rang. It was a text message. Yi Siki looked up at the bedside. It was Lin Shihao's cell phone. He was taking a shower in the bathroom. Her hand froze and her heart clenched nervously. She put down her clothes, walked to the bedside and picked up the cell phone. She had never looked through Lin Shihao's cell phone because she trusted him. But now she sat on the bed, her heart pounding. She hesitated, her fingers trembling as she held the cell phone. The sound of running water in the bathroom became softer. Lin Shihao would come out of the shower soon. She made up her mind and turned on the cell phone. She easily cracked his password. It was her birthday. She opened her inbox. It was a text message from Bai Meiwei. She didn't open it to read, but the main content of the message was displayed at the bottom. "Senior, I want to talk to you. Meisei Bar, 9:30 p.m. Be there or be square." Yi Siki's fingers suddenly clenched. She felt very conflicted. She looked through the other messages, but couldn't find any more from Bai Meiwei. She didn't know if she really didn't send any messages, or if Lin Shihao had deleted the messages. The sound of running water stopped. Yi Siki quickly put the cell phone back on the bedside table. Lin Shihao walked out of the bathroom in a bathrobe. He held a towel in his hand and wiped his hair as he said, "Honey, are you done packing?" "I'm almost done." Yi Siki put the clothes into the suitcase and tried to make her voice sound calm. "I heard your cell phone ring just now. Check if someone sent you a text message." "Oh, okay." Lin Shihao took the cell phone. Yi Siki pretended to pack the luggage and secretly glanced at him. She saw his expression change after he turned on his cell phone. She quickly retracted her gaze and zipped up the suitcase. She smiled and asked, "Who's looking for you?" Lin Shihao deleted the text message. He paused and said, "It's little Wang. He's heartbroken and in a bad mood. He's at Meisei Bar and wants me to go over and have a drink with him." Yi Siki felt as if she had been splashed with a bucket of cold water. Her heart felt cold. Welfare Songshu 566. Chapter 260. Yi Siki felt as though she had been splashed with a bucket of cold water. She tried her best to smile as though nothing had happened. "Xiao Wang is your colleague. It's not good for him to be out drinking alone at this hour. You'd better give him a call and persuade him to go home." Lin Shihao thought for a moment and said, "I'd better go over and take a look." He guessed that Bai Meiwei wanted to talk to him about the child, so he wanted to know what she was thinking. Yi Siki had a smile on her face, but her heart was bleeding. "Aha, okay. Be careful on the road." She walked him to the door. When she heard the door close, she leaned against the wall and felt like she was going to give in. After a while, she dug her nails into her palms and tried to encourage herself. "Yi Siki, you can't be so useless. You should go and see what they're talking about instead of staying here and wallowing in self-pity." Yi Siki's eyes shone with determination. She suddenly stood up and strode back to her room. She changed her clothes, grabbed Xiaodong's car keys, and took the elevator downstairs. When she came out of the main entrance of the building, she happened to see Lin Shihao's car drive out of the neighborhood. She quickly ran into the garage and drove Xiaodong's car out. Under the night sky, she followed Lin Shihao's car from a distance. Meisei Bar. In the gentle dance music, pairs of men and women hugged each other and danced to the music. Lin Shihao walked into the bar. After he found Bai Meiwei, she pulled him over to sit beside her. He discreetly shifted his butt away from her. The private room in the hall was semi-open. A circular leather sofa surrounded the wall. As long as the person next to it stood up, they would be able to see every movement of the person in the private room. Everyone went to the bar to pass the time, and rarely peeked into other people's privacy. So when Yi Siki climbed onto the sofa and peeked in front, she was very eye-catching. It was then that Xiao Tianxing noticed her. Xiao Tianxing sat at the bar and inadvertently looked up. He saw Yi Siki sprawled on the sofa, staring at a spot 2 rooms away from her. He quickly recognized her and knew that she was Xiaodong's good friend. He curiously followed her line of sight, and saw a man and a woman sitting in the same row with their backs to Yi Siki. From his point of view, the man and woman were facing him. He raised his eyebrows and put down his wine glass as if possessed. He looked at Yi Siki and the others from afar, and guessed that this was a melodramatic play of a wife catching her husband cheating on her with a mistress. Lin Shihao glanced at the silent Bai Meiwei. "Meiwei, have you thought about the child?" Bai Meiwei nodded her head. "I've already thought it through. I'll follow your advice and give up on the child. But you have to promise me one thing." Lin Shihao said in a low voice, "Tell me." Bai Meiwei tilted her head to look at him. Her eyes were filled with complex emotions as she slowly said, "Senior, give me a month's time. Within this month, you have to go on 5 dates with me. After a month, I will abort this child." Lin Shihao said, "I can give you a month, but I can't go on dates with you." Bai Meiwei grabbed his arm as tears welled up in her eyes. "Senior, can't you take pity on my sincerity and satisfy my fantasies?" "Meiwei, I'm sorry. I already have a wife. I can't do anything to let her down. Lin Shihao held her hand and tried to remove it from his arm. No, Senior. Bai Meiwei suddenly hugged him tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she said hoarsely, Senior, you've already done something to let sister-in-law down, haven't you? What's one more? Besides, I'm only asking you to go on dates with me. I won't do anything else. It's just 5 times. After 5 times, I'll abort the child and won't pester you anymore. Her words pierced Lin Shihao's heart like a needle. His hands and feet instantly turned cold. She leaned her head against his chest and said in a low voice, Senior, it's true. I'm not lying to you. After a month, I'll abort the child. Just give me 5 dates. Her tears flowed onto his clothes. He couldn't help but feel guilty when he saw her heartbroken expression. He had let her down. If he hadn't been drunk and mistook her for Siki, they wouldn't have ended up in this situation. 5 times. Only 5 times. Senior, I beg you. Her pleading voice traveled into his ears. He couldn't help but clench his fists and slowly close his eyes. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes. His voice was low and hoarse as he said, Okay, I promise you. After a month, you have to have the operation. I'll definitely have the operation. Bai Meiwei lifted her chin and smiled through her tears. She looked pitiful, but Lin Shihao wasn't in the mood to admire her. His brows were deeply furrowed. Bai Meiwei took out 2 plane tickets from her handbag. Senior, I heard that you've applied for a holiday. Coincidentally, I've also applied for a holiday. Let's go to Sanya for a holiday, okay? Lin Shihao pushed her away from him. His expression was a little ugly. Why do you want to go to Sanya? Bai Meiwei pulled out a tissue to wipe her tears and said gently, A 4-day holiday is too short. There's not enough time to go overseas, so I've chosen to travel within the country. It's too cold in the north and Sanya's warmer climate. Isn't it just right? Lin Shihao pinched his brows. Siki and I plan to go to Sanya this time. Let's postpone our date. Bai Meiwei was stunned. Then she revealed a bitter smile. I understand. Then we'll start our date when you come back from Sanya. She put the plane tickets back into her handbag. Lin Shihao grunted softly. It's getting late. I should go back. He was about to get up when Bai Meiwei grabbed his arm and said anxiously, Senior, stay with me for a while. Just half an hour, okay? Lin Shihao pursed his lips tightly. He was silent for a long time before he sat down stiffly. Yi Siki slowly slid down from the sofa and sat down dejectedly. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She had seen her own husband holding another woman in his arms with her own eyes. Although she was too far away to hear their conversation, his actions had deeply hurt her. She covered her mouth and sobbed bitterly. Because she was trying to suppress her own voice. Her shoulders shook violently and her chest rose and fell rapidly. She looked so pitiful that Xiao Tiansheng couldn't help bending over to pull out a tissue and handed it to her. He had originally just wanted to watch the show. Unexpectedly, the more he watched, the more excited he became. He actually walked over to her side. A large hand holding a tissue suddenly appeared in her line of sight. Yi Siki didn't even raise her head as she took the tissue from the hand and wiped her tears. However, the more she wiped, the more her tears flowed. Like an open faucet. She couldn't dry them no matter how hard she tried. Xiao Tianxing looked at her sorry figure as she lowered her head and wiped her tears. He simply sat down beside her and stuffed the entire box of tissues into her hands. He said calmly, I'll give you this box of tissues. If it's still not enough, I'll get someone to bring you more. Yi Siki pulled out more than 10 tissues and covered her mouth tightly. Her tears flowed silently and her shoulders shook even more violently. Xiao Tianxing narrowed his eyes as he looked at this woman. He remembered very clearly the first time he saw her. She was like a valiant and formidable heroine who rushed in front of Bai Li Han and slapped him in the face. At that time, she was very dazzling. Like a flame. She was full of love. But now, she was heartbroken and was suppressing her heartache. This strong contrast made Xiao Tianxing feel a little uncomfortable. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and dragged her up from the sofa. She was caught off guard, and the box in her arms fell to the ground. She looked up with tears in her eyes and saw the tall and straight stranger in front of her. With a sobbing tone she questioned, What are you doing? Xiao Tianxing frowned and said in a deep voice, Yi Siki, show your power and slap that adulterous couple. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She struggled desperately as if she had gone crazy. Let go of me. Don't meddle in my affairs. I don't even know you. Xiao Tianxing grabbed her shoulders with both hands and stared coldly into her eyes. Yi Siki, you don't know me, but I know you. You idiot. Instead of crying here, why don't you go up and question your husband? I don't want you to meddle in my affairs. Let go of me. Yi Siki struggled with all her might. Her tears had stopped flowing and she kicked Xiao Tianxing angrily. I told you to let go. Xiao Tianxing did not let go. His hands were like iron pincers as he held her shoulders tightly. Her punches and kicks were like fancy and impractical moves in his eyes. They were harmless. He looked at her flustered and exasperated expression and raised his eyebrows. Very good. This is the real you, Yi Siki. You're more pleasing to the eye like this. Lunatic. Yi Siki was in the midst of being heartbroken, but she was held by a strange man. She listened to his strange words and her heart burned with anger. She wanted to pounce on him and bite him to death. Xiao Tianxing laughed. Do you want me to accompany you for a drink? Yi Siki's struggling suddenly froze. The sadness that she had temporarily forgotten surged up like a tidal wave. She slowly gave up struggling and said calmly, No need. I should go back. Xiao Tianxing let go of her shoulders. His slender fingers took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. This is my business card. If you have any problems, you can look for me. For example, if it's a relationship problem, I'll be happy to help you. Yi Siki did not take the business card. She looked at him as if he was an idiot. Sir, can't you see that I'm a married woman? Your flirting method is completely useless against me. Xiao Tianxing laughed mockingly. Madam, I've already seen the ugliest side of you crying bitterly. Do you think I'd still be interested in you? Yi Siki felt awkward for a moment. She wiped her face with a tissue and said fiercely, Since you're not flirting, why are you helping me? Beauty novel Songshu 566. Chapter 261. Xiao Tianxing forcefully shoved the business card into her hand and raised his eyebrows. It looks like you really don't remember me. I'm a friend of Bailey Han, and you're Xiaodong's friend. We're considered friends indirectly. Just take it that I'm being kind and want to do good deeds. Yi Siki frowned and looked at him seriously. Suddenly, she felt that he looked familiar. After thinking about it carefully, she realized that she had indeed seen him before. Her expression softened a little. She raised her hand to look at his business card. This business card was a little too unique. There was no title or title on it, only a name and a phone number. Xiao Tianxing. His name. Xiao Tianxing chuckled. I wouldn't give my business card to just anyone. You should be grateful for your good luck. Yi Siki's mouth twitched. Thank you. She took her handbag and put the business card inside. I'm leaving, she said. Xiao Tianxing pointed behind him. Don't you want to see what else they're up to? Yi Siki froze. She dug her nails into her palms. No need. That's good too. Call me if you have any problems. I can be your marriage expert for free. A sincere smile appeared on Xiao Tianxing's face. For him, this was really not easy. It was rare for him to be serious. Okay, I got it. Yi Siki waved her hand casually. She didn't think that she would ask this unreliable man for advice on marriage. She didn't dare to look at the private room behind her. She took her handbag and hurriedly left Charming Club. Xiao Tianxing looked at her back and chuckled. Yi Siki sat in the car and looked at the brightly lit streets. She had no one to complain to. In the past, if she had any problems, she could still look for Xiaodong. But now that Xiaodong was abroad, she realized that no one could listen to her bitterness. Yi Siki slumped back in her seat and looked at the endless stream of cars outside the window. She had the urge to get drunk. However, she was too rational and thought about too many things. For example, if she got drunk, how would she go home? How was she going to explain this to Lin Shihao? She let out a long sigh and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She stepped on the accelerator and drove in the direction of home. In the supermarket in the neighborhood, she bought a bottle of beer. She and Lin Shihao didn't drink much. There wasn't even a drop of alcohol in the house. Yi Siki sat on the sofa, opened a can of beer, and gulped it down. After drinking 2 cans, she leaned on the sofa and fell asleep. Lin Shihao opened the door to the living room and smelled the strong scent of alcohol. He saw his wife curled up on the sofa and sleeping soundly. There were 2 empty beer cans by her feet, and a can of beer by her side. He frowned and bent down to carry her from the sofa. She clung to him tightly like an octopus and murmured, "Hubby, don't leave me behind." Lin Shihao's body froze. He tightened his arms and hugged her tightly. Tears almost flowed out of his eyes. His voice was low and hoarse. "Honey, I won't leave you behind. Never." It was as if she had heard his promise. She lay in his arms and fell asleep peacefully. Lin Shihao wanted to put her on the bed, but her hands were too tight. In order not to wake her up, he didn't even take off his jacket and lay down with her. He kicked off his shoes, pulled the blanket over them and hugged her tightly in his arms. Yi Siki wanted to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. She struggled to get up in a daze. Lin Shihao woke up with a start and turned on the bedside lamp. "Honey, what's wrong?" Yi Siki was still drunk. She looked at him with drunken eyes and pouted. "Hubby, I want to go to the bathroom." "I'll help you there." Lin Shihao got out of bed and helped her down from the bed. She staggered and almost fell down several times. Lin Shihao sighed and simply carried her up. After carrying her into the bathroom, he placed her on the toilet. She did not even take off her pants, and from the looks of it, she wanted to settle it immediately. He quickly said, "Wife, wait a moment." "Why?" She looked up in confusion. "I can't hold it in anymore." "Silly, take off your pants first." Lin Shihao helped her up from the toilet. He held her waist with one hand and took off her pajama pants with the other. He then took off her underwear and helped her sit on the toilet again. The sound of water splashing could be heard. She finally got rid of her physiological problem, and a comfortable expression appeared on her face. Lin Shihao stood by her side and watched her. Seeing her stand up shakily, he quickly held her arm and helped her put on her pants with one hand. He then pressed the flush button and bent down to pick her up. She naturally reached out and hooked her arms around his neck and leaned her head on his chest. When they returned to the bedroom, she fell asleep again. Lin Shihao looked at the little woman lying in his arms and sleeping peacefully. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He hesitated for a long time about Bai Meiwei's pregnancy, but he still didn't dare to tell her. He knew that she was a person who was obsessed with emotional cleanliness. His body had already betrayed her once. If he let her know that Bai Meiwei was pregnant again, he didn't know what she would do. "Honey, I'm sorry. I hid it from you, because I wanted us to start over." He buried his head in her neck and murmured, "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." Something sparkling and translucent fell from his eyes and landed on her neck. It rolled down her neck and into her pajamas. She unconsciously replied with an N and hugged him even tighter. The sun shone through the curtains. Yi Siki frowned and impatiently turned over. Her arms happened to be supporting Lin Shihao's chest. Her muddle-headed mind gradually cleared up. She slowly opened her eyes and saw that handsome and familiar face. He was sleeping soundly with his eyes closed and a green stubble on his chin. His right hand was under her head, and his left hand was still on her waist. They hadn't slept in the same bed in such an intimate position in a long time. Yi Siki stared at his handsome face, her heart filled with mixed feelings. In the end, she slowly reached out her hand, stroked his cheek, and said in a low voice, "Hubby, I'll give you one more chance." She gently pushed his hand away from her waist and quietly got out of his arms. When she heard the sound of the toilet in the bathroom, she suddenly quivered and remembered that she had groggily gotten out of bed in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Even her pants seemed to have been taken off by Lin Shihao. Her face instantly heated up. Although they had been husband and wife for a long time, this was the first time something so awkward had happened. After washing up, her face was still a little hot when she came out of the bathroom. Lin Shihao had also woken up. He shook his sore right arm and asked, "Honey, you were drunk last night." Are you feeling better now? Yeah, I'm fine now. Her gaze was erratic. What's wrong? Your face is red. Are you having a fever? Lin Shihao held her shoulders and raised his right hand to touch her forehead. I'm fine. She avoided his hand and smiled awkwardly. Last night, you carried me to the bathroom, right? Lin Shihao laughed and ruffled her hair. You were too drunk and stumbled when you walked. If I hadn't carried you in, I was worried that you would have fallen into the toilet. She coughed twice. You have to quickly forget what happened last night. Why? He raised his eyebrows in confusion. Because you helped me take off my pants. Most importantly, he heard her shushing. Yi Siki was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. His lips curled into a mischievous smile. I've helped you take off your pants many times. Don't say any more. Yi Siki reached out to cover his mouth. Her face was red as she stammered. In any case, you have to quickly forget it. His eyes were full of smiles. They had been married for so many years, but she was still easily embarrassed. He held her hand and took it away from his mouth. He said gently, I won't forget. I'll treasure everything about you in my mind. When we're old, I'll tell you everything. His eyes were full of tenderness and his expression was serious. He didn't look like he was joking at all. She sniffled and tears welled up in her eyes. Slowly she hugged him. He also reached out his arms and hugged her tightly. Wifey, do you still remember what I said to you on our wedding night? Yes, I remember everything. Yi Siki's tears fell. She bit her lip and asked in a choked voice, Hubby, can we really do this? Yes, we definitely can. Trust me. Lin Shihao held her cheeks and looked into her eyes seriously. He said word by word, in this lifetime, I'll only love you. If there was a person who could tolerate your shortcomings, who could remind you that there were vegetable leaves on your teeth without feeling embarrassed, who could laugh at your indecent actions, then he truly loved you. Yi Siki hugged the man who truly loved her, and her tears flowed uncontrollably. Don't cry. Be good. Lin Shihao carefully wiped the tears from her face and said gently, Wifey, rest for a while more. I'll make breakfast. Yi Siki smiled with tears in her eyes. I want to eat fried eggs. Nyonya loves sandwiches. I know. He smiled and kissed her cheek. Be good. Rest for a while more. I'll call you when it's ready. She nodded obediently. Yi Siki didn't do as he said and rest for a while more. Instead, she changed into her home clothes and stood not far from the kitchen to watch him make breakfast. He had an apron around his waist and was busy in the kitchen. There was a faint smile on his face, and he was very easygoing and gentle. Nyonya was wearing little bunny pajamas. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and walked over. She said in surprise, Hey, Daddy is making breakfast today. Yi Siki smiled and hugged her daughter. Lin Shihao heard the sound and turned to look. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. She wished that time would stop at this moment, the happy moment of their family of three. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 262. After Mikakito returned to China, the first thing he did was to look for his godfather. When he was in Rome, he had sent his men to search for his godfather's villas, but they did not find him. He guessed that his godfather must have other places to stay. Even his most trusted Wolf does not know where he is. Mikakito used Wolf's number to call his godfather's private number. Jiang Dao sat behind a pile of equipment and tried to trace the signal. The phone rang for a long time before it finally got through. His godfather's low voice came into his ears. Wolf, how is it going? It's me, Mikakito. The godfather paused. Wolf is dead? Mikakito said lightly. They are all dead. What are you going to do? Take revenge on you. Beep beep. The phone was hung up. Mikakito looked up at Jiang Dao. How is it? Did you find his address? Yes. He is in a bar outside the 3rd Ring Road. Jiang Dao turned his laptop over and saw a red dot on the map. Track him immediately, Mikakito ordered. Several groups of people rushed to the godfather's location. But when they arrived at the bar, they couldn't find any trace of the godfather. Instead, they found the godfather's phone in a trash can in a private room of the bar. It was the phone he used to talk to Beitang Shen. Jiang Dao called the manager of the bar over and asked about the guest in the private room. The manager said, "This guest is very unfamiliar. He is wearing a black windbreaker and black sunglasses. He seems to be waiting for someone." Jiang Dao said, "Show me the CCTV footage in the corridor." "Okay. Please wait a moment." The manager asked someone to show him the CCTV footage. Jiang Dao saw the man in the black windbreaker in the video. Although he could not see the man's face, his figure was the same as his godfather's. Jiang Dao looked at the time when the man left. It was right after he hung up the phone. He asked, "Where did this man go after he left the bar?" "I don't know. I will ask the staff. Maybe someone saw him." A few minutes later, the manager came back and said that a waiter saw the godfather driving a red Porsche Cayenne toward Binjiang South Road after he left the bar. "What's the license plate number?" He didn't see it clearly. Jiang Dao sent people to chase after them from Binjiang South Road. The surveillance cameras installed along the road recorded everything and fed it back to Mikakito. The top hackers of Sanku spent the whole afternoon hacking into the internal system of City A's Transportation Bureau and copied the surveillance footage along Binjiang South Road. In the end, when he checked the video, he found that there was no red Porsche Cayenne as the waiter had mentioned. Mikakito tapped the table with her slender fingers. Godfather might have changed cars on the way. Maybe the Porsche Cayenne is a breakthrough. Jiang Dao, investigate the Porsche 4S stores and the information of their customers. During the investigation, Jiang Dao found that his godfather had purchased the car under the name of Shangguan Ao half a year ago. He did not leave his address or phone number, but there were two maintenance records. One was scratching the door, and the other was breaking the rearview mirror. According to the customer service staff at the reception, a young lady had driven the car over when the rearview mirror was broken. She looked sweet and cute when she smiled, so he had a deep impression of her. Jiang Dao pondered for a while, then took out Su Xingqian's photo and asked the customer service staff, "Is this the girl who drove the car?" The customer service staff was a handsome young man. He looked at the photo carefully and nodded. "Yes, it's her. She even called me brother affectionately." Jiang Dao's mouth twitched. This was something that Su Xingqian would do. Jiang Dao reported the results of the investigation to Mikakito and asked, "Boss, what should we do now?" Mikakito's eyes flickered. His godfather was Su Xingqian's godfather, and they were very close. They were so close that Su Xingqian drove his godfather's car out casually, and then drove it to the 4S store for maintenance after it was broken. He was a little curious if his godfather would appear if something happened to Su Xingqian. Mikakito waved his hand, and Jiang Dao bowed to him. He whispered a few words to Jiang Dao, and Jiang Dao nodded. While dealing with his godfather, Mikakito did not forget about the other person who persecuted Xia Dong, Su Yunqian. He wanted Su Yunqian's reputation to be ruined. This was the best punishment for her. After Bailey Han went abroad to look for Xia Dong, Su Yunqian's illness continued to fluctuate. Sometimes she was sober, sometimes she was obsessed, and when she was not in a good mental state, she would make a fuss and say that she wanted to see Bailey Han. Su Yunqian's parents were already mentally and physically exhausted. When they could not persuade Su Yunqian, they could only ask old Madam for help. Now old Madam was the only person who could persuade Su Yunqian. On the second day after Mikakito returned to China, Bailey's family first received a CD. At that time, only old Madam and Bai Jinxiu were at home. After watching the content of the video, they were shocked for a long time. Old Madam's lips trembled. After a while, she pointed at Su Yunqian in the CD and spat out a few words fiercely. "She's worse than a beast." Bai Jinxiu slumped on the sofa and shook her head in disbelief. This can't be true. How could Yunqian do such a thing? Old Madam took a long time to suppress the anger in her chest. She stamped the floor with her cane and said, "I'm going to ask her now. What did Bailey's family do to wrong her? Why did she do such a vicious thing?" Old Madam was decisive. She stood up and walked out with her cane. "Butler, prepare the car." Mom, calm down." Bai Jinxiu quickly caught up with her and held her arm. We still don't know whether this video is true or not. Isn't it too hasty to make trouble for the Su family with great fanfare? Old Madame Fu's stubborn temper flared up. She stiffened her neck and said angrily, Jinxiu, the people who were framed by them are your biological son and your daughter-in-law who has already given birth to 3 grandsons for you. No matter how much you side with outsiders, you can't just watch them hurt them. Mom, that's not what I meant. I meant to find out the truth of the matter first. After we find the evidence, we'll get even with them. I'm telling you, I believe that what's in this video is true. Old Madam snorted. If you think that Su Yinqian is a simple person, then you're wrong. She drugged Ahan's wine and pretended that they had sex. She even pretended to be pregnant to threaten Ahan to marry her. She even pushed Xiaoyi down the stairs. I didn't want to argue with her because of our old friendship, but I didn't expect her to go overboard. Bai Jinxiu's eyes widened. She stammered, What? Drugged? Pregnant? Why didn't I know about these things? I kept these things from you. I wanted to save some face for Su Yinqian, but I didn't expect her to be so vicious. Let's go. Cut the crap. I'm going to the hospital to get even with her and expose her tricks. Old Madam dragged Bai Jinxiu's arm and walked out. Bai Jinxiu was in a state of shock and almost lost the ability to think. She obediently followed her into the car. The driver drove them to the hospital where Su Yinqian was. Mrs. Su was taking care of her in the ward. When she saw Old Madam and Bai Jinxiu, she quickly stood up and smiled. Auntie Jinxiu, you're here. Su Yinqian seemed to be in good spirits today. Her complexion was good, and she even had a faint smile on her face. She stood up and greeted, Grandma, Auntie. Old Madam's face darkened. She slammed the door of the ward and threw the CD in her hand on the table. She said coldly, Huilan, look at the good daughter you raised. What did the Bailey family do to the Su family? Your good daughter has to do this to us. Su Yinqian seemed to be frightened. She grabbed Mrs. Su's arm with both hands and carefully hid beside her. Mrs. Su held her daughter's hand and said hurriedly, Auntie, what's wrong? Is there a misunderstanding? Take a look at this CD first. Old Madam angrily sat on the sofa and pointed at the CD with her cane. Mrs. Su was confused. She wanted to say something to calm Old Madam down, but she didn't know where to start. She could only put the CD into the CD player and turn on the TV with the remote control. A man and a woman appeared on the screen. The woman was facing the camera. She was Su Yinqian. The man's face couldn't be seen clearly because his back was to the camera. Su Yinqian said, Put on a good show in front of everyone. I'm going to use the pressure of the public opinion to force them to do something. The man asked, How do you do it? She had a smile on her face, but the words she said were hair-raising. You're the kidnapper. You put forward the conditions. Say that Bailey Han and Xiaodong have to divorce within 3 days and let Xiaodong replace me. If they don't, you'll rate me in front of the whole country. How's that? Isn't it exciting? The man said, It is. However, Bailey Han won't agree to let Xiaodong replace you. She pursed her lips. Of course I'm not stupid enough to say that I'll let Xiaodong replace me. I'll just say that I'll let Xiaodong come and take me home. As for what happens after that, isn't it all in your hands? What if they don't want to divorce? She sneered. Then we'll really put on a show of rape, and let all the reporters witness it with their own eyes. We'll let it spread widely on the internet. Then, we'll hire a group of people on the internet to lead the public opinion, and push all the blame onto Xiaodong and Bailey Han. In the face of such strong pressure, won't they feel guilty? The man nodded affirmatively. Yes. She raised her eyebrows proudly. That's right. I was raped and something so tragic happened. My mental state will definitely suffer a huge blow. I might even have a split personality and become a mental patient. When that happens, do you think Bailey Han will take good care of me out of guilt? Yes. Xiaodong will be jealous because of this. The two of them will argue because of this. If it gets serious, they might even separate and get a divorce. Once Xiaodong leaves Bailey's house, you can carry out your plan. The conversation ended here. It was probably deliberately cut off by the person filming, so they didn't know what the man in black was planning to do. However, they could guess that it was definitely not something good. Ad. Songshu 566. Chapter 263. When Su Yinqian heard the first sentence she said in the video, she knew that something bad was going to happen. Many thoughts flashed through her mind. Her godfather must have asked someone to film this CD, and the purpose was to put her to death. Damn it, she didn't pay more attention at that time. Now that the truth was exposed, what should she do? From the beginning to the end, she had been thinking about this problem. Her heart was anxious, but she still had a very calm expression on her face, as if she was in a trance. Bang! The old madam slammed the table and said angrily, "Huilan, you've seen the contents of the CD. What else do you have to say?" Mrs. Su couldn't believe her eyes. Her daughter was kidnapped on purpose? Deliberately pretending to be crazy? This was simply an oriental night. Auntie, I don't believe it. This CD must be forged by someone else. Yinqian wouldn't do such a thing. Okay, since you think the CD is fake, then we'll find someone who knows the technology to analyze it and see if it's fake. The old madam immediately called the police chief and asked him to arrange a technician to help verify the authenticity of the CD. The technician said that it would take a day to analyze it, and then took the CD away. The old madam glared at Su Yinqian angrily. Su Yinqian acted as if nothing had happened and smiled innocently. "Grandma, what's wrong? Who made you angry?" "Su Yinqian, don't pretend anymore." Old madam was so angry at her innocent smile that she vomited blood. She wanted to tear her face apart. "Mommy, I'm scared. Why is Grandma so fierce?" Su Yinqian buried her head in Mrs. Su's arms and trembled. Mrs. Su gritted her teeth and said, "Auntie, the matter hasn't been investigated yet. Don't you think it's a bit too much to accuse Yinqian rashly?" The old madam was so angry that her chest rose and fell rapidly. Bai Jinxiu quickly patted her back and whispered, "Mom, calm down. All right, then we'll wait for the police to confirm that the disc is real before we discuss this matter. At that time, you must give us an explanation." The old madam angrily threw down these words and walked away with the help of her walking stick. Bai Jinxiu glanced at Su Yinqian with a complicated expression and hurriedly left with the old madam. After they left, Mrs. Su Yinqian was stunned for a long time. Then, she turned to look at Su Yinqian, who was hugging her arm, and asked slowly, "Yinqian, is what was recorded in the CD true? Are you really lying to us?" Su Yinqian tilted her head, looking innocent. "Mommy, what are you talking about? I don't understand. In the video we just watched, you were talking to a man in black. You said that you were pretending to be kidnapped and mentally ill. Is that true?" Mrs. Su grabbed Su Yinqian's wrist nervously and asked in a trembling voice. Su Yinqian looked pained. "Mommy, you're hurting me." Mrs. Su loosened her grip. "Yinqian, tell me, is it true?" Su Yinqian pointed at the TV. "Are you talking about the two people in the TV just now? I don't know them at all." Mrs. Su looked at her seriously. Her daughter had a puzzled expression on her face. Her beautiful eyes were clear and pure. Mrs. Su stared at her for a moment, unable to believe that her daughter would lie. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Su Yinqian carefully tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Are you angry with me?" Mrs. Su's eyes reddened and she held back her tears. "No, Mommy isn't angry." She hugged Su Yinqian tightly and whispered, "My daughter, you're already so pitiful. Why would someone want to harm you?" "Mommy, don't be like this. I'm so scared." Su Yinqian's voice sounded so pitiful and delicate. Mrs. Su's heart was about to break. She patted her back. "Baby, don't be afraid. Mommy's here. Mommy won't let anyone hurt you." Mrs. Su returned to the old mansion in a huff. She felt so sullen that she didn't even want to eat dinner. She sat in her room and sulked. She sat beside the old master's wheelchair and held his hand. She was indignant. "Old man, that's Su Yinqian, why is she so evil? I'm so angry." Mr. Su listened to her complaints in silence. His old eyes were cloudy and there wasn't a trace of life in them. After complaining for a while, Mrs. Su began to feel sad again. She sighed deeply. "Back then, I thought that Xiaodong wasn't good enough and kept stopping her from being with Ahan. Instead, I tried to matchmake Ahan and Su Yinqian. In the end, It turned out that I was really blind and fell for an ingrate. Old man, I feel so bad. When I think about how Xia Dong suffered back then, I feel so guilty." As she spoke, tears fell from Mrs. Su's eyes. She choked and said, "Now that she has that kind of illness, I don't know if she can make it. Tell me, why is this child's life so hard?" Mr. Su didn't say anything. He suddenly reached out his hand and slowly placed it on the back of Mrs. Su's hand. He pressed it gently. Mrs. Su turned her gaze and looked at their overlapping hands. His hand was like a withered tree's bark. It was covered with wrinkles and perfectly covered her hand. Mrs. Su's tears fell like rain. She hugged him tightly. "Old man, you still want to shelter me from the wind and rain, right?" When they were young, Mr. Su would always place his hand on the back of her hand whenever they were in trouble. Their fingers would interlock and he would say, "Don't be afraid. I'll shelter you from the wind and rain." These words had accompanied her for a whole 65 years until Mr. Su fell ill and couldn't express himself anymore. He couldn't recognize them anymore. The old master let out a muffled sound from his throat, as if he was agreeing with what she said. Mrs. Su trembled and rubbed her face against his. She choked and said, "Old man, if there's an afterlife, let's be husband and wife again. When that time comes, it'll be my turn to shelter you from the wind and rain." Although Mr. Su's eyes were still dull, the corners of his lips slowly curled up. After venting her emotions, Mrs. Su felt much better. She wiped her tears and changed into a new set of clothes. She patted the back of Mr. Su's hand and said, "Let's go downstairs and eat. I don't want my son and daughter-in-law to worry." The butler had been waiting at the door for a long time. When he saw Mrs. Su open the door, he hurriedly said, "Mrs. Su, you should eat something. Don't starve yourself." Mrs. Su nodded. "Butler, help me push Mr. Su downstairs." The family was waiting in the dining room. When they saw Mrs. Su and the others coming downstairs, they immediately smiled. Bailey Jing came up and hugged Mrs. Su's arm. She said, "Grandma, I made your favorite Westlake vinegar fish today." Mrs. Su smiled and said, "Xiao Jing, are you used to working in your brother's company?" Bailey Jing looked bitter. "Grandma, can we not talk about such a heavy topic when we're eating?" Bailey Xiong laughed. "Child, didn't you just boast that you've mastered the work and know how to operate it? Isn't that to make Daddy and Mommy happy? How would I dare to make Grandma happy? Grandma, don't you think so?" Bailey Jing helped Mrs. Su to sit at the head of the table and acted coquettishly. Mrs. Su tapped her forehead with her finger. "You little monkey, if you don't understand something, you should ask your father. Don't cause any trouble. Otherwise, let's see how your brother will deal with you when he comes back." I know. Grandma, Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao are still watching. You have to leave me some dignity as an elder." Bailey Jing scooped a bowl of soup and placed it in front of Mrs. Su. Mrs. Su smiled and shook her head. "You're too nosy." With Bailey Jing's jesting, the atmosphere at the dining table became much livelier. After the meal, Mrs. Su asked someone to push old Master Gu to the garden outside for a walk while she went upstairs to rest. After sitting on the sofa for a while, someone knocked on the door. It was Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao. Mrs. Su smiled and waved her hand. "Come over and sit next to Great-Grandma." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao sat on either side of Mrs. Su with mysterious smiles on their faces. Mrs. Su stroked their heads and said gently, "Xiao Bao, is something the matter?" Xiao Bao winked at Xiao Yi. "You're the eldest. You tell them." Xiao Yi sighed maturely. "Eldest is always bullied." Xiao Bao made a funny face and looked extremely cute. Mrs. Su was amused by them and couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Yi said, "Great-Grandma, we heard that you and Grandma watched a video and knew that Su Yunqian is a bad woman. However, we don't have enough evidence and can't accuse her. We have something to give you." As he spoke, he took out a recording pen from his pocket and placed it in Mrs. Su's hand. "Great-Grandma, there's a conversation recorded in here. After you listen to it, you'll understand that what was recorded in the CD is true." Su Yunqian is really a disgusting bad woman. Mrs. Su's expression became serious. She didn't ask any questions and directly opened the recording pen. It was Su Yunqian talking to a strange man on the phone. After listening to the recording, Mrs. Su broke out in cold sweat. Su Yinxian actually convinced her godfather to use the power of the mafia to deal with Xia Dong. Then, Ahan's head injury was also caused by her. Mrs. Su was furious to the extreme. Her whole body was trembling. It was as if there was a volcano in her heart that was emitting flames and lava. It was as if she was going to be burned to ashes. Xiaobao puffed up his cheeks and said, "Great-grandma, don't be angry. The most important thing now is to expose Su Yunqian's true colors." Although Mr. Su had once said not to act rashly, Uncle Shen had already dug out the malignant tumor, Barit, and was dealing with Mr. Su. In that case, Su Yunqian was nothing to be afraid of. Mrs. Su nodded. Xiaobao is right. We must expose this evil woman's ugly face. Come and see. Hongcha 866. Chapter 264. After Mrs. Su left, Su Yinxian frowned and paced back and forth in the ward, trying to think of a way to solve the crisis in front of her. She clenched her slender fingers tightly. Suddenly her eyes turned cold. She walked quickly to the phone and dialed her godfather's number. 2 minutes later, her godfather called back. Su Yinxian suppressed her anger. "Shengguaneo, you bastard. Why did you secretly film me and mail the video to the Bailey's family?" Her godfather was silent for a moment. "It wasn't me." "If it wasn't you, who else could it be?" Su Yinxian was about to go crazy. "I did secretly film you, but I didn't send it to the Bailey's family." Her godfather paused and continued. "Our plan failed. My men were all killed in Rome. It must be Mikakito's doing. It really wasn't you." "I'm sure. Mikakito is now looking for my whereabouts. I'm a victim, just like you." Su Yunqian's eyes were filled with deep hatred. "Mikakito, you win." After hanging up the phone, she leaned back on the sofa and stared at the ceiling. After thinking for a long time, she reached out and picked up the phone. The phone rang for a long time, but no one answered. She angrily hung up the phone. After 2 minutes, she persistently dialed a string of numbers again. After a while, a man's half-awake voice came from the phone. He said in English, "Hello, who is this?" Su Yunxian took a deep breath and softened her voice. "Darling, it's me." On the other end of the phone, the man seemed to wake up a little. "Honey, what's wrong? It's early in the morning here." "I know. I'm sorry to wake you up from your sleep, but I've been cornered." "Darling, you must help me," Su Yinxian said softly. "What happened?" "Godfather secretly recorded our conversation. I don't know how Mikakito got a hold of it. She made it into a CD and gave it to the Bailey's family. Now the Bailey's family is questioning me. Darling, I don't know what to do." Su Yunqian's weak and helpless voice was transmitted to the man's ears through the microphone. The man frowned. "Don't worry. Only the Bailey's family knows about this. You just need to prove to them that the evidence was forged. Then, you can delay them for a while. At the same time, you can destroy the evidence in Mikakito's hands." Su Yunxian replied softly. "The CD has been sent to the technical department of the police station for technical evaluation. Can you send someone to replace it?" The man said in a deep voice, "The police station is not that easy to break into. Darling, please help me. I'm begging you." Su Yunxian's voice was weak. The way she called him darling was enough to make one's bones go soft. The man was silent for a moment before he said, "I'll send someone to do it. As for the evidence left behind by Mikakito, I'll also arrange for the best hackers to destroy it." "Darling, thank you," Su Yunxian said softly. She did not know that the 2 calls she made had been eavesdropped on by Xiao Yi and Xiaobao through the wiretap. They had also recorded the conversation. This evil woman, she's already at the end of her rope and she's still trying to play tricks. Xiaobao clenched his fists and his little face was filled with anger. "We can't let her have her way." Little Wingzy rubbed his chin with a serious expression on his face. "Who's the darling behind her? Why don't we hand this matter over to Uncle Shen and ask him to help us dig out the person behind this bad woman?" Aren't they going to sneak into the police station? Then we'll let Uncle Shen wait for them." Xiaobao's pink lips curled up. They immediately sent the 2 recordings to Mikakito. After Mikakito received the recordings, he frowned slightly. His slender fingers tapped lightly on the sofa. If the man behind Su Yinqian wanted to destroy the evidence in his hands, the best way would be to hack into the computer. His eyes suddenly narrowed. Jiang Dao. Boss. Jiang Dao strode to his side. Edit Su Yunqian's video and the 2 recordings sent by Xiaobao together, and save them on a portable hard drive. If there's a hacker attack, deliberately leave a loophole for the other party to hack into, then trace the other party's information. Yes. Jiang Dao received the order, and immediately began to deploy the plan to catch a turtle in a jar. Mikakito suddenly turned his head and looked at Suzaku. Take a few people with you to monitor the police station. Be careful, don't leave anyone alive. He wanted to see who was behind Su Yinqian. The night was getting darker. A figure appeared in front of the police station's command building. He was wearing black tights and a silver mask on his face. His deep eyes flashed sharply as he fixed his gaze on the building in front of him. He pulled his hands at his waist, and a pair of hang gliders suddenly appeared on his back. He pressed a button at his waist, and the hang gliders brought him up slowly toward the top floor of the building. Under the moonlight, he looked like a big black bird as he slowly landed on the top floor. He retracted the hang gliders and leaped toward the door at the top of the building. After passing through the door, he could directly enter the police station. As far as he knew, the technical department was on the 12th floor. However, before entering the corridor, he took off his tights. It turned out that he was wearing a police uniform underneath. Then he took off the mask on his face. Under the moonlight, a handsome Asian face was revealed. He casually stuffed the mask into the clothes covering his chest, and then hid the tights in a corner. After doing all this, he put on the earpiece and said in Italian, "I'm going in." The person who responded to him also spoke in Italian. "No problem, I'm ready. Be careful, Thunder." Thunder grunted in a low voice, "Okay." Just as he finished speaking, all the surveillance cameras in the building went black. The policeman on duty in the monitoring room patted the machine in confusion, thinking that the machine had malfunctioned. He restarted the machine, but it still didn't go back to normal. The policeman on duty picked up the phone and called his colleague in the technical department to help check it out. The moment the surveillance cameras went black, Thunder had already rushed to the technical department like a ghost. When the person on duty received a call from the monitoring room and walked out of the office, he immediately sneaked in quietly. There were all kinds of evidence in the technical department. Thunder used his gloved hands to search around. Finally, he found a CD in a drawer. The CD had a label Su Yinqian on it. He immediately took out the fake CD hidden in his arms, tore off the label, stuck it on the fake CD, and put it back in the drawer. Then, he put the real CD in his arms and hurried out of the technical department's office. Just as he took 2 steps, a voice suddenly came from behind him. "Who are you? It's so late. Why haven't you gotten off work yet?" Thunder pressed the brim of his hat down and turned around. He saw the staff on duty in the technical department. He smiled and said, "I'm a new intern. The leader gave me a task and asked me to work overtime to complete it." The staff on duty didn't suspect him and smiled. "Then you go ahead and go home early when you're done." Thunder smiled. "Okay." The staff on duty nodded, opened the office door and walked in. Thunder pressed the brim of his hat even lower, almost covering his entire face. He lowered his head and walked back to the rooftop. He put on his tights on the rooftop and used his hang glider to fly down. He landed steadily behind the building. A black Land Rover was waiting for him behind the building. He quickly got into the car. The driver was a handsome foreign man. He turned to look at Thunder and asked, "Thunder, did you succeed?" Thunder smiled. "I almost gave myself away. Luckily I'm alert. Jamie, let's go. I feel uncomfortable within 100 meters of the police station." Jamie laughed. "Then you still dare to take on this case?" Thunder shrugged. "Who asked you to pay me so well? Okay, let's go." Jamie started the car and stepped on the accelerator. The car shot out like an arrow leaving a bow. After their car drove out, a black Porsche Cayenne quietly followed them. In order not to be discovered by the other party, the distance between the Cayenne and the Land Rover was always 1 to 200 meters. Lu Xing was in charge of driving while Suzaku used a pair of binoculars to observe the direction of the Land Rover. The left fork. To the right. Suzaku kept watch while directing Lu Xing. After following for more than half an hour, the Land Rover drove to the hospital where Su Yunqian was. Thunder jumped out of the car and knocked on Su Yunqian's door with the stolen CD. Thunder had already changed his clothes. He was wearing a pair of jeans and a windbreaker. There was a bright smile on his face, just like a big boy. Su Yunqian looked at him. Her eyes moved but she didn't say a word. Her expression hid some wariness. Thunder smiled and handed the CD to her. "Don't worry, I'm here to help you. This is what you want." Su Yunqian took the CD and said lightly, "Thank you." "You're welcome. I'm leaving." Thunder waved and disappeared at the end of the corridor. Su Yunqian locked the door, took out a lighter and lit the CD. A few minutes later, the CD turned into a pile of dust and was washed down the drain. Thunder jumped into the Land Rover and started the car. The Qian continued to follow. Jamie glanced at Thunder and said, "Where do you live? I'll send you home." "No need, you can just drop me off at the next bus stop." Jamie exclaimed exaggeratedly. "No way, you took this case and got paid 1 million. But you took the bus home." Thunder smiled meaningfully. "Isn't it good to save a little?" He really got out of the car at the bus stop. Coincidentally, there was a bus coming. He didn't care where it was going and jumped on the bus. There weren't many people on the last bus. He found a seat and sat down. His deep gaze looked through the window and behind him. Suzaku saw Thunder sitting on the bus with her binoculars. She frowned slightly. Damn this guy, she didn't expect him to be so vigilant. He had separated from Jamie and was going in different directions. Her team could only split into two to follow. Awesome novel Songshu 566. Chapter 265. Suzaku said in a low voice, "Lu Xing, continue to follow that Land Rover. I'll go after that man in black." Lu Xing turned to look at her. "Be careful." I know. Remember to leave him alive." "All right." Suzaku jumped down from the Qian and stood at the intersection. Coincidentally, a taxi came. She stopped it and asked the driver to follow the bus that Thunder was on. Although the bus had already driven a long distance, its speed was not as fast as the taxi. Soon they caught up with the bus. The bus stopped at the bus stop. Among the people who got off, there was no Thunder. Suzaku said coldly, "Continue to follow." After following for another 7 stops, Thunder finally got off the bus. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and stood under the bus stop. His hair covered his forehead, revealing a pair of deep eyes. He stood under the bus stop leisurely until the taxi stopped by the road. Suzaku got off the car. He watched her walk over step by step and the corners of his lips curled up. "You've been following me for a long time," Suzaku said indifferently. "You're very vigilant." Thunder grinned. "In my line of work, if I wasn't vigilant, I would have been arrested long ago." Suzaku stared into his eyes. "Thunder, you're the best art forger and art thief in China. I didn't expect you to help others steal discs." Thunder's gaze swept across the iPad in her hand and he shrugged. "Looks like you've investigated me very carefully. Your database is quite impressive." Suzaku didn't deny it. She had already taken a picture of Thunder on the way and sent it to the Senka Group's database for comparison. Very quickly she dug out all the details of Thunder. She said indifferently, "If you cooperate, I won't make things difficult for you." Thunder's eyes flashed with a smile. "I've always been very cooperative with a beauty like you." Suzaku's expression didn't change. She said indifferently, "Who hired you to steal discs?" "Jamie." "Who's Jamie?" "Jamie is the driver in the Land Rover. He was the one who took care of my operation this time." Thunder crossed his arms and did not hide anything. "I snuck into the police station, and Jamie was in charge of hacking the police station's surveillance cameras." Suzaku asked, "Jamie's identity?" Thunder shrugged. "I'm not sure. I only know that his name is Jamie." He seemed to have thought of something. "Ah, right, he should be Italian. He kept talking to me in Italian. Luckily, I'm very knowledgeable and know a little bit of Italian." Suzuka's eyes moved as she asked, "How did he contact you?" "Mobile phone." Thunder stroked his chin. "I don't know how he got my number. I'm guessing that if you call his number now, his phone will be turned off or the service will stop." Suzuka took out her mobile phone and dialed the number he gave. Sure enough, she heard a cold female voice reminding her that the user had turned off her phone. People like them wouldn't leave any evidence for others to use against them. As soon as the transaction was over, Jamie had already turned off his phone and threw it away. "All right, I've already told you everything I know. Can I go now?" Thunder spread out his hands. Suzuka replied with a faint After he turned to leave, she suddenly said in a voice that was neither loud nor soft, "I'm very curious. Why didn't Jamie kill you to silence you? Logically speaking, only the dead keep secrets. Are you really not close to each other?" A glint flashed across Thunder's eyes. He turned around and smiled mischievously. "Perhaps it's because of my personal charm that Jamie couldn't bear to kill me. We really aren't close. Otherwise, I wouldn't have told you these things." "Is that so?" Suzuka didn't comment, but her gaze followed his back as he left. Her brows slowly furrowed. Regardless of whether Thunder was telling the truth or not, the main point was that Jamie, if they caught him, they might be able to dig out Su Yunqian's backer. Thunder put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked confidently into a dark alley. When he was sure that no one was following him, he took out his phone and dialed a number. After 2 rings, Jamie's voice came through. "Yes. Jamie, let me remind you. Someone is following you. Be careful." He didn't wait for Jamie to speak and hung up the phone. He threw the phone into the trash can. He shrugged and ran his fingers through his hair sadly. Sigh, it was time for him to change his ID and phone again. Jamie really wanted to curse. Damn Thunder, couldn't he have warned him earlier? It was too late now. Jamie had already parked the car outside his apartment. Through the rearview mirror, he saw a Kian parked by the road. That was the stalker. Jamie frowned. He wasn't in a hurry to get out of the car. Instead, he dialed the phone in the apartment to inform his companions. Soon, 2 foreign brawny men with guns rushed out. They fired at the Kian. The bullets stuck in the bulletproof glass and were covered with fine cracks. The intense gunshots didn't stop. The Kian was shot like a beehive, but the people inside didn't move at all. The 2 brawny men held their guns and cautiously moved towards the Kian. A brawny man aimed at the car and waved his hand. Another brawny man kicked open the rear door that was riddled with bullet holes. The moment he stuck his head out to check, a pair of hands suddenly reached out from under the car and grabbed his ankles. Then with great force they pulled him back. "Ah!" The brawny man cried out in shock. His body fell back with a thud. His whole body was pulled under the car. There was an intense struggle. From time to time, arms or legs would come out of the car. The brawny man in charge of cover bent down to look down, but he didn't dare to shoot. He was worried that he would accidentally shoot his companions. Bang bang. 2 gunshots sounded. The fight under the car stopped. Blood slowly flowed out from under the car. The brawny man called his companions' names twice. There was no response. He gritted his teeth and shot under the car. Suddenly, a black figure jumped out from the other side of the car. Bang! A gunshot sounded. The brawny man was shot in the forehead. He stared dumbfoundedly at the pistol in the black figure's hand and slowly fell to the ground. Lu Xing expressionlessly glanced at the corpse in front of him. Holding a pistol, he broke into the apartment. At the same time when the gunfight happened, Jamie had already escaped into the apartment. He tied the pistol to his waist and planned to jump out of the window and escape from the backyard. He didn't expect that just as he jumped out of the window, 2 men in black suits jumped out from the bushes and captured him. Jamie knew Mika Kito's methods. In order to force a confession out of him, he would definitely torture himself until he was better off dead. So when the 2 men escorted him to the car, he suddenly bent his arm and hit the man in black behind him in the ribs. Taking advantage of the moment when the other party relaxed, he suddenly turned and ran towards the road. Bang! Shooting Star raised his arm and fired a shot at Jamie's leg. He fell to his knees with a thud and smashed his head onto the road. Catch him! Don't let him die! Lu Xing roared. Two of his men ran over and pressed Jamie's head. Lu Xing reached out to check Jamie's breathing and pulse. His breathing was very weak. Fresh blood flowed all over the ground. He growled. Quick, carry him to the car and send him back to the villa for treatment. When Jamie was carried to Miyamoto Hanzo's operating table, he had already stopped breathing. It turned out that not only did he hit his head on the ground, but when Lu Xing and the others pressed his head down, he also bit off his tongue. Miyamoto Hanzo shook his head. This guy wants to die. There's no saving him. Lu Xing's expression turned ugly. Boss had instructed them to keep him alive, but he still died in his own hands. How was he going to explain this to Boss? Just then, Suzaku pushed in a man who was tied up. The man's eyes were covered with a black cloth, and he was mumbling nonstop. Why are you like this? I've already said that I don't know anything about Jamie. Lu Xing's gaze turned over. Suzaku pursed her lips and pulled the black cloth off the man's face, revealing Thunder's handsome face. Suzaku said mildly, Jamie is already dead. When Thunder saw Jamie lying on the operating table, a complicated look flashed across his eyes. He shouted, Hey, what does his death have to do with me? I've already told you that I only took 1 million from him to help him steal the CD from the police station. Our relationship is that simple. Vermilion Bird coldly snorted. You called Jamie in the alley, I already heard it. She raised her hand and shook the thing in her hand. This phone is the one you threw in the trash can. How about it? I'm not wrong, am I? More than an hour ago, Suzaku had secretly followed behind Thunder and eavesdropped on his phone call. She had then blocked Thunder from the other exit and fought with him without a word. In the end, she had subdued him and tied him up and brought him to the villa. All right, you win. I did call Jamie, but that doesn't prove that we're old friends. He's my employer. I'm just reminding him out of goodwill. Can't I do that? Yes, of course you can. You can continue to quibble, but you'll soon know that this is wrong. Suzaku waved her hand and 2 bodyguards came forward and forced the braces into Thunder's mouth. She said coldly, This is to prevent you from committing suicide because you can't take the torture. Welcome to Hell on Earth and enjoy 108 torture tools. When the bodyguards pushed a small cart full of tools in front of Thunder, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. These tools were all stained with blood. No matter which one was used on him, it would make him wish he was dead. Lu Xing put on the gloves expressionlessly and glanced at him. It's not too late for you to talk now. Thunder shouted. I'll talk. He was just an elegant art thief who dealt with expensive art and antique dealers. At most, he would be chased by the police. He had never seen such a cruel situation. The other party hadn't even made a move, and he couldn't take it anymore. Welfare Songshu 566. Chapter 266. Tell me, I want to know Jamie's background. Lu Xing pulled up a chair and sat in front of Thunder. Thunder smiled bitterly. Actually, I really don't know much. Last year, I stole a painting by Raphael from the Uffizi Art Gallery. At that time, the seller I contacted was one of Jamie's subordinates. Jamie said that he appreciated my methods and left my contact information. This is the first time he contacted me to help him. That simple? Don't you know the boss behind him? Lu Xing looked doubtful. Thunder was helpless. It's really that simple. I don't have a personal relationship with him. Other than knowing that he's Italian and controls the black market for art, I know nothing about him. From the information revealed by Thunder, Mika Kido could only guess that Su Yunqian was related to the Italian mafia. As for who her backer was, she didn't know. According to Thunder, he had stolen Raphael's painting, Shao Girl in a Scarf. Jamie's men had helped him dispose of the stolen goods. If he could find the whereabouts of the painting and trace back to the source of the stolen goods, he might be able to find the organization behind Jamie. Mika Kido personally called Tomac and asked him to help investigate this matter. After the interrogation, Jiang Dao walked quickly to Mika Kido and said in a low voice, A hacker attacked our database. Dao has already followed your instructions and left a loophole for the other party. The other party has successfully destroyed the video, but Dao has also traced the IP address. It's a public network in Rome. The hacking incident once again proved that Su Yunqian was indeed related to the mafia. Mikakito sneered. She thinks that she can sleep with Wu Yu just because she destroyed the evidence? I'm going to destroy all of her hopes. An hour later, Jiang Dao uploaded all the videos and recordings to the internet. Also, mail the backup to the TV station. Tomorrow morning, Su Yunqian will be greeted with an earth-shattering scandal. Suzaka suddenly said, "Do you want to replace the CD that was replaced by Thunder in the police station?" Mikakito raised her hand. "I'll send someone else to handle this." As an influential figure in the underworld, how could he not bribe one or two government officials? There were also corrupt people in the police station. As long as he had something on them, they would naturally do things for him. It would be a piece of cake to change the disc. Su Yunqian tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep, until she received a mysterious phone call, telling her that the evidence in Beitang Shun's hands had been destroyed. Only then did she feel completely relieved. She comfortably lay on the bed and slept until dawn. She was awakened by a quick knock on the door. She slowly changed her clothes and combed her hair before opening the door of the ward. Kacha kacha. The flashes of the camera almost blinded her, and she subconsciously raised her hand to cover her face. A group of reporters crowded the door, holding cameras and microphones in their hands. They asked all at once, "Miss Su, is the video real? Did you really set up a trap for Mr. and Mrs. Bailey with the mysterious man? Miss Su, were you really raped, or was it an act? Miss Su, who is the mysterious man? Who is the darling you mentioned on the phone? Miss Su, does your family know about the trap you set? Miss Su, Miss Su." A series of questions flooded Su Yunqian like a tide, almost suffocating her. She covered her face with one hand and blocked the reporters at the door with the other. She returned to the room and wanted to close the door, but it was blocked by two male reporters with their bodies. There was no way she could close it. Su Yunqian suddenly put down the hand that was covering her face. Tears welled up in her beautiful eyes and she sobbed softly. "Mommy, I'm so scared. Where are you?" Sob sob. The reporters were instantly dumbfounded. They held their cameras and shot, and the questions came to an abrupt end. A reporter behind shouted, "Miss Su, your acting skills are so good. If you were to act in a movie, you would definitely win an Oscar." "It's so scary. Get out of the way." Su Yunqian cried harder and harder. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain, making people pity her. "Miss Su, stop acting. The video of you on the internet is going viral." Sob sob. Su Yunqian did not refute. Instead, she squatted down, curled up into a ball and sobbed. She looked like an abandoned animal, pitiful and pitiful. She even cried out miserably, "Nurse, save me." As if responding to her cry for help, the doctor and nurse heard the news and rushed over. They squeezed in front of Su Yunqian and blocked the reporters behind them. "Please get out of the way. Don't film anymore. This is a hospital." A reporter put the microphone in front of the doctor and asked anxiously, "Are you Miss Su's attending doctor? Is Miss Su really crazy? Or did she use her superb acting skills to deceive everyone?" "No comment. Please respect my patient." The doctor politely and coldly threw down this sentence. He escorted Su Yunqian back to the ward and closed the door with a bang. The head nurse said politely, "Everyone, this is a hospital. Our patient needs to be quiet. Please leave." A female reporter smiled and said, "Head nurse, may I ask if Miss Su is really sick?" The head nurse replied, "This is the patient's privacy. It's not convenient for us to disclose it. Everyone, please cooperate with the hospital's regulations." The reporters pestered the doctor and nurse to ask more questions, but the answers they received were, "It's not convenient to disclose," "No comment," and so on. They had to give up and leave the hospital. The doctor and nurse comforted Su Yunqian. When she calmed down, they left. They sent security guards to guard outside the ward to prevent the patient from being disturbed by the media again. Su Yunqian was the only one left in the ward. Her gaze suddenly turned cold. She turned on the computer and realized that her scandal had spread throughout the entire A city. The television news and newspaper reports about her were all over the place. She had also become a celebrity on the internet. Someone dug up her previous kidnapping videos and sharply analyzed that when she read the note written by the kidnapper, her expression was strange, and her expression was too fake. There were also people who collected Su Yunqian's previous public photos and reports of her participation in public welfare activities and charity activities. They criticized her smile for being too fake, criticized her for using public welfare and charity to raise her image, and accused her of being a hypocrite. After that, some employees of the Su group who were not willing to reveal their names posted that they had seen Su Yunqian throw a cup in anger with their own eyes. They had also seen her fierce gaze and strange smile. The mask of a goddess had been exposed. There were also people who revealed that they had slept with Goddess Su. Goddess Su had SM tendencies and even posted photos of some instruments, such as whips, handcuffs, candles, and so on. Of course, there were no photos of Goddess Su. This person said that Goddess Su never left any evidence that could be used against her. Therefore, except for the person involved, almost no one knew her true nature. Even her ex-boyfriend, Bailey Han, was kept in the dark. As soon as this post was posted, it immediately became a godly post. Tens of thousands of people reposted it, tens of thousands of people bowed to the post owner, and tens of thousands of people bombarded Su Yunqian. She soon became notorious and was despised by people. Su Yunqian was so angry that she smashed everything in the room, including the vase that Xiaoyi gave her. Because she was so angry, she did not notice that the moment the vase broke, a small black thing jumped under the bed. Damn it, calm down, I need to calm down. After venting, Su Yunqian clenched her fists and tried to calm down. The video was taken by her godfather, so who made the two phone recordings? Su Yunqian's mind raced. She clearly remembered that she made the phone calls in this room. Therefore, someone must have placed a listening device or surveillance device in the room. She looked through everything in the room, including the mattress, sofa, table, wardrobe, and even every corner of the bathroom. However, she did not find the listening device. She messed up the room, but she did not expect that the listening device she was looking for had already rolled under the bed. The Su family was implicated and the villa was surrounded by reporters. However, no matter what people said, they still believed that Su Yunqian was innocent, and that she was framed. Now Mrs. Su placed all her hopes on the authenticity of the CD. Mrs. Su wanted to visit Su Yunqian at the hospital, but she could only sneak out from the back door. She wore sunglasses and a hat, and quietly came to the hospital. Fortunately, the reporters outside the room were all driven away by the nurses, so she did not encounter any obstacles when she entered. The room was in a mess. Su Yunqian was like a frightened little animal. She hugged her legs and trembled on the sofa. Her eyes were full of fear. When she saw Mrs. Su come in, she threw herself at her and cried, "Mommy, why did you come so late? There were so many people just now. It was so scary. Don't be afraid. Mommy is here." Mrs. Su held her daughter in her arms and gently stroked her back. "Yunqian, don't be afraid. Mommy won't let them hurt you." Before she came to the hospital, Su Bolin and Su Jin had already used their connections to do crisis PR and planned to clear Su Yunqian's name. Mrs. Su comforted Su Yunqian. Unexpectedly, the door of the ward was opened and the old lady of Bailey came in with her family. They were followed by 2 policemen and 2 reporters. One of the reporters was holding an interview microphone, and the other was carrying a camera. They aimed the camera at Mrs. Su and Su Yunqian. "Auntie." Mrs. Su saw this and had a bad feeling. The old lady snorted. "Huilan, I'll give Su Yunqian one last chance for the sake of the friendship between our families. If she admits her mistakes in front of everyone, I'll give her a chance to turn over a new leaf. If she refuses to come to her senses, then don't blame me for being cruel." Beauty novel Songshu 566. Chapter 267. Auntie, don't be fooled by the rumors. Yunqian would never do such a thing. Madame Su still defended her daughter at this point. The old madame's cold gaze locked onto Su Yunqian. She said coldly, "Su Yunqian, what else do you have to say for yourself?" Su Yunqian clenched her fists tightly. Her timid gaze swept across the crowd. A few thoughts flashed through her mind. In the end, she decided to take a gamble. Tears welled up in her eyes. She sobbed pitifully and said fearfully, "Grandma, you're so fierce." "Very well." The old madam was so angry that she stomped her walking stick on the ground. "You're still pretending at this point. I'll let you die a clear death." "Xiaowang, sorry to trouble you." A policeman stood up from behind, took out a CD from his briefcase, and said, "After the technical department's identification and analysis, the face of the woman in this CD is exactly the same as Miss Sue's. They belong to the same person, and the voice analysis is also a complete match. From this, we conclude that the woman in this CD is Miss Sue." Madame Sue's eyes widened in disbelief. No, this is impossible. Yinqian would never do such a thing. It's impossible." The old madam said coldly, "Huilan, whether you believe it or not, the truth is the truth." Her cold gaze fell on Su Yinqian. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife. "Su Yinqian, you're so heartless. Not only did you lie to us, but you even have the heart to lie to your parents. Look at your mother. She's been protecting you until now. How can you bear to do this?" Su Yinqian's expression was blank. Even in the face of the old madam's accusation, her expression did not change at all. Madame Su grabbed her shoulders. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Yinqian, tell mommy that you didn't lie to me. Tell me." Su Yinqian's blank expression didn't change, but her hands quietly clenched. The old madam's sharp gaze was fixed on her, trying to find a flaw in her. Therefore, the old madam caught her every move. Old madam stared at her hands and sneered. "Su Yinqian, you finally know how to be nervous. Otherwise, why are you clenching your hands so tightly?" Even though she was calm, Su Yinqian couldn't help but tremble. Mrs. Su's hands on her shoulders sensed the subtle change. "Yinqian, tell me the truth. Are those videos real?" Mrs. Su stared into her daughter's eyes, holding on to the last glimmer of hope. Su Yinqian was silent. She kept silent. Xiaobao suddenly stood up. There was a strange smile on his pink cheeks. "Don't force her. I have new evidence to prove that she's pretending to be crazy." He took out a recording pen from his pocket and pressed the play button. Immediately, there was the sound of things being smashed in the room. The old madam and the others looked at the messy floor. This must be the result of Su Yinqian smashing things just now. Suddenly, the sound of things being smashed stopped. Su Yinqian gritted her teeth and said, "Damn it. Calm down. I need to calm down." Xiaobao turned off the recording pen and snorted. Su Yinqian knows very well what happened. She also knows that she's in trouble. "May I ask, how can a mentally ill person be so clear-headed?" Madame Su shook her daughter's shoulders agitatedly. "Yinqian, is this true? Did you really lie to us?" Su Yinqian bit her lips tightly and didn't say a word. However, the despair in her eyes couldn't be hidden from everyone's eyes. Madame Su shook her head. She couldn't believe that her most beloved daughter would lie to her. She shook her daughter's shoulders as if she had gone crazy. "Hurry up and deny it. Say that you didn't lie to me. Yinqian, tell them that you didn't lie. You didn't do those things." Su Yinqian closed her eyes in despair. Madame Su was on the verge of breaking down. She slapped her daughter's face and roared in grief. "You bastard! How could you do such a thing? How could you hide it from your father and me? Do you know how much effort and tears we've shed for you? How could you trample on our hearts like this? You disappoint me." Madame Su was so angry that her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Su Yinqian hugged her nervously and called out anxiously, "Mommy, doctor." The doctor rushed in and anxiously checked on Madame Su's condition. Su Yinqian stood aside, not knowing what to do. Madame Su waved her hand, and the reporters stopped filming. Madame Su glanced coldly at Su Yinqian and said, "Xiao Gao, I want the things you filmed to be broadcasted on TV immediately." The reporter named Xiao Gao nodded repeatedly. "No problem. Let's go. Thank you for your hard work today." Madame Su chatted with the police and reporters for a while. She didn't look at Su Yinqian again, and let everyone out of the ward. Soon, all the electronic screens on the street were broadcasting the short clip of Madame Su exposing Su Yinqian's true colors. All the radio stations also broadcast it one after another. More negative news about Su Yunqian came flooding in. They said that she was cold-blooded and heartless. She didn't care about her family's feelings and kept them in the dark. Her mother was so angry that she fainted. They said that she was as cunning as a fox and didn't surrender until the last moment. She became a well-known bad woman. Mothers on the street used her as a negative example to teach their young daughters. Don't learn from that bad woman. If you become like this, I'll kill you and then commit suicide. Su Yunqian's image became the source of many young girls' nightmares for many years. Su Jin and took his weak mother home from the hospital. Su Yunqian followed behind them silently. When the reporters took photos, she was like a puppet. She didn't say a word and let them take photos without any resistance. After returning home, Su Jin and helped his mother upstairs. Su Bolin sat on the sofa and stared at Su Yunqian, who was standing at the entrance. His face was livid as he roared, "Kneel!" Su Yunqian's face was pale. She knelt on the ground with a thump. Her back was straight like a statue. Su Bolin was furious. He threw a thick stack of newspapers in front of her. "How did I give birth to such a shameless daughter like you?" The newspapers were scattered on the ground. Every one of them had news about her on the front page. Some said that she was hypocritical. Some said that she was having an affair behind her ex-boyfriend's back. Some accused her of framing Xiaodong and Bailey Han. Even the fact that she had faked her pregnancy to force Bailey Han to marry her was exposed. Su Yunqian finally understood what it meant to be kicked when a man is down. "You unfilial daughter. You actually hid it from us until the last moment." The more Su Bolin thought about it, the angrier he became. He raised his hand and slapped her hard on the cheek. 5 streaks of blood immediately appeared on her fair and tender face. Su Bolin wanted to slap her a second time, but Su Jin rushed downstairs and stopped him. Su Jin grabbed Su Bolin's arm and said in a low voice, "Dad, don't be rash. Let go of me. Let me beat this unfilial daughter to death." Su Bolin's eyes were red. How much heartache, how much tears, and how much effort had their family put in for this unfilial daughter? But she actually hid it from her family and didn't care about what her family thought at all. Just thinking about this made Su Bolin want to beat her to death. "Dad, what's the use of hitting her now? The most important thing now is to find a way to solve this problem." Su Bolin paused for a moment and slowly put down his arm. "Jinan, get ready. We're going to Bailey's house now to ask for forgiveness." His eyes flashed sharply. He stared at Su Yunqian and raised his voice. "And you get ready. Let's go together." Su Yunqian pursed her lips and stood up trembling. Her legs were numb from kneeling for too long. She held onto the wall and slowly went upstairs. Looking at her lonely back, Su Jin had a complicated look in his eyes. In the living room of Bailey's old residence, Su Bolin brought Su Jin and then Su Yunqian to ask for forgiveness. The 3 of them stood awkwardly at the door. The old madam and Bailey Xiong sat on the sofa with cold expressions. They lowered their eyes and drank tea, as if they didn't hear the butler's announcement. After giving them the cold shoulder for nearly 10 minutes, the old madam slowly raised her head and said mildly, "President Su, thank you for coming. You brought your son and daughter. What's the matter?" Su Bolin's old face squeezed out an awkward smile. "Auntie, we're here to ask for forgiveness." He suddenly turned to Su Yunqian and said sternly, "Yunqian, kneel down." Su Yunqian didn't say a word and knelt straight on the cold floor. "I don't deserve it. I'm just an old woman with one leg in the coffin. How can I deserve Miss Su's kneel? Housekeeper, quickly help Miss Su up. President Su, please go back too." Our small temple can't afford to worship a great Buddha. The old madam's every word was laced with sarcasm, mocking Su Bolin and the other 2 to the point that they couldn't even raise their heads. "Miss Su, quickly get up." The butler reached out to help Su Yunqian up, but she avoided him. Her legs seemed to have grown roots as she stubbornly knelt on the ground. Su Bolin's old face turned green and white. "Auntie, I'm very ashamed. It's my fault for not teaching her well. That's why Yunqian became like this. For the sake of the friendship between our 2 families, please give Yunqian a chance to turn over a new leaf." The old madam coldly looked at Su Yunqian, who lowered her head and didn't say a word. I gave her a chance, but she didn't grasp it. When she hurt Xia Dong and Ahan, why didn't she think about the friendship between our two families? Bolin, if you still treat me as an elder, quickly go back. No matter what you say, I won't give you a chance. Su Yunxian suddenly knocked her forehead heavily on the ground and sobbed. Grandma, I beg you. Please forgive me. I was confused for a moment. Don't. I don't deserve to be called grandma by you. Besides, you and Ahan have nothing to do with each other now. You have no reason to call me grandma. The old madam said mercilessly. Butler, quickly help Miss Su up. Miss Su, quickly get up. The butler grabbed Su Yunxian's arm and forcefully pulled her up, but she remained on the ground and refused to get up. Beauty novel Hongcha 866. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.